Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Perth County Council, the 17th day of October. I'd ask everyone to bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. We'll read our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Perth County is situated on the traditional land of the Aninasha who have a long-standing relationship with the land and water throughout the region. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous and Métis and Inuit people who call this territory home. As a county, we have a responsibility for reconciliation, the continued stewardship of the land on which we live and work. If any council member has pecuniary interest, they can disclose that now or as we move along. We do have a motion to approve the agenda. Is there anything anyone needs to be added, changed? If not, we have a motion that the October 17, 2024 agenda be approved. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Turnkowski. All in favor? Carried. Excuse me. Consent agenda, we have 20 items on our consent agenda. Is there any item anyone would like pulled or they have questions on? Councillor McKenzie?
I would think that as a county, we should support 6.6. We had quite a discussion about that, I think, at our last meeting, and I think it's only fitting that we show support for that resolution.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? No, okay. So then that council receives a consent agenda item 6.1 to 6.20 with the exception of 6.6 and approves the October 3rd, 2024 council minutes. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg, second by Councillor Orr. All in favor? Carried. Walter, do you wish to add anything to your?
I don't think I need to add anything further. We had a lengthy discussion at our last meeting, and I think we leave it at that. And I would certainly move that we support that resolution.
Okay, and do we have a seconder? Councillor McDermott. All in favor? Carried. Okay. We do have a need for a public meeting this morning, and it's on the planning of the OPA 230 and the official plan. So we have a motion that the regular council meeting recess for the purpose of holding the public planning meeting at approximately 9:03 a.m. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Wilhelm. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so the next motion we have is that the planning public meeting October 17th agenda be approved. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Oh, right. If you have pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as the meeting goes along. Thank you. The minutes from August 1st, 2024. Council approves the minutes for August 1, 2024 planning public meeting. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Turnkowski. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so the first item on our planning meeting is the Perth County Official Plan Amendment 230 on Sherco Holdings. I believe planner Jeff Bannon is going to do this. Morning, Jeff, and welcome. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. MHPC Planning on behalf of Sherco Holdings have submitted an official plan amendment for the lands municipally known as 4350 Line 36. Property is located on the north side of Perth Line 36 and south of Line 39 between Road 125 and Perth Road 122. Subject lands are comprised of a decommissioned gravel pit, rehabilitated ponds resulting from the previous aggregate operations, agricultural lands, and an existing truck trailer and equipment repair business. The provincial policy statement protects prime agriculture areas for the long-term agricultural use, and it recognizes that in those prime agricultural areas, the extraction of mineral aggregate resources is permitted as an interim use, provided that the site will be rehabilitated back to an agricultural condition. Subject lands have been rehabilitated to allow for agricultural production following the surrendering of the aggregate licenses on the property. The application to redesignate the subject lands to agriculture will recognize the long-term intended use of the lands, and the mineral aggregate resources on the subject lands have been extracted, and the interim use of the property for extraction is no longer needed. The redesignation of the property to agricultural is consistent with provincial policy statement, as the rehabilitation has been completed and the lands are being protected for the long-term agricultural use. The proposed amendment to the County of Perth official plan designation is to redesignate those lands from mineral aggregate resources, licensed pit or a quarry limestone resource, to agriculture to facilitate the rehabilitation of that gravel pit. The application to redesignate the subject lands will recognize the long-term intended use of the lands, and the mineral aggregate resources on the lands have been extracted and the interim use is no longer needed. Public notice for the official plan amendment was provided to the neighboring property owners on September 27th in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. At the time of writing the report, no comments of concerns have been received from the public. Blue Water Recycling Association has stated that they do not have any comment on the application, and Upper Thames River Conservation Authority have noted that they have no objections to the subject application. The existing special mineral aggregate resource zone, MAR 3, allows for the existing uses on the property. The applicant has also submitted a rezoning and consent applications for the lands to accommodate the existing uses on the land, the creation of new parcel for the existing truck and equipment repair business, and 2 lot additions. Future planning reports will be taken to the Perth East Council meeting to consider the zone change application and the consent applications. At the Township of Perth East Council meeting on October 1st, Council resolved to provide a recommendation to County Council that the official plan amendment 230 affecting the lands as described be approved. Planning staff have no concerns with the official plan amendment. The amendment will allow for the redesignation of the subject lands to agriculture in accordance with the provincial policy statement and the County of Perth official plan. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms with the official plan, and in our opinion, represents good planning. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Seeing no one, is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant or the applicant's agent? Seeing no one, does the applicant or the applicant's agent wish to make a presentation?
She's here.
Okay.
Good morning, Warden and members of council. My name is Julianne Von Westrold. I'm here on behalf of Sherco Holdings. And all I wanted to say is that I support staff's recommendation and I hope that you do too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from members of council? No? Okay, council will consider a resolution regarding the planning report recommendation following the conclusion of the public meeting. Okay, so the second public meeting we have this morning is our new draft county official plan for 2024 for adoption, and I'm going to call on Andrea and Moira. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, members of council. Good morning, members of the public. So this morning we have a presentation for you regarding the Perth County official plan. The presentation will summarize how we have gotten here today, the key aspects of the official plan, as well as key changes that were made since we were before you last time. So as I said, we'll go through a quick project summary. We'll go through what the project timeline and what the project phases looked like for this project. We'll go through what an official plan summary looks like, what the contents of the official plan are, the comments that we received from the last iteration of the official plan, which we saw at council in June and also before public open houses in July, and then a public engagement summary. So as we've heard before, the county official plan is a strategic planning document. It'll guide the long-term growth and development of land within the county of Perth. It was initiated in July of 2018, and it was undertaken due to the existing official plan being over 25 years old and no longer being consistent with provincial planning policy. The objective of the official plan is to ensure that the policies and the procedures that we're using to guide growth and development in the county are in line with the provincial requests and policies and are in conformity with provincial policies, but are also addressing appropriate local priorities and the needs of county residents. On the screen, you'll see a quick timeline or a brief timeline of what has gotten us here today. The official plan project was undertaken in a 7-phase approach, beginning in 2018 and proceeding to where we are today. In the next couple of slides, we'll go through a summary of each phase. The first phase of the official plan project included preliminary public outreach. So between 2017 and 2018, the county and staff, as well as the consultant on the project, who was WSP, engaged members of the public at various open house events through an extensive online survey to determine what the vision for the official plan was. This was then brought to a special council meeting at September 12th to then determine that there should be a formal review of the official plan, and that is what initially started the official plan process. Phase 2 included the completion of various background reports that supported the completion of the draft policies that you'll see in the official plan today. The first background report that you'll see is available online, and it was brought before you in April of 2020. But this was the Perth County background official plan and policy directions report. So essentially this presentation and report and background information that was included, it looked to ensure that the official plan was consistent with provincial policy, and it also took a look at the lower tier official plans and zoning bylaws to see where potentially the official plan needed to make amendments. The next study that was completed was the Natural Heritage System Study. This was completed in 2020, and it was undertaken to determine what the natural environment or natural heritage system, as it's called at the provincial level, looks like in the county of Perth. And then finally, there was the Perth County Comprehensive Review. This was undertaken by Watson, and it provides the population, employment, and housing projections for the next 30 years within Perth County. This study was then revised in 2021 due to the economic trends that were seen in Perth County as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Phase 3 of the project included the completion of the first draft of the official plan. So the background reports and presentations and feedback heard at public consultation, all of that was consolidated by the consultant WSP and created into a first initial draft of the official plan. This was done between 2022 and 2023. County staff then were able to take a look at this document and provide that local context. So we saw a review of over 700 special policies, including official plan amendments and urban fringe designations, to make sure that these were appropriately captured in the official plan. We cross-referenced data with various conservation authorities that have regulated areas in the county, as well as information from the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Ministry of Environment. We also completed a minimum distance separation review of service settlement areas and proposed service settlement areas to ensure that MDS compliance was seen and undertaken. And then there was also a natural environment engagement undertaken during this time throughout the plan, but particularly from 2022 to 2023. Site visits were undertaken. There are some specific open houses and public meetings held on this matter. And finally, once all of that was completed, a first initial draft of the official plan was brought before you council on December 21st, 2023. The next phase of the project included public outreach, another round of public outreach in the spring of 2024. This included the publication of the draft official plan online, as well as the hosting of various open houses throughout the lower tier municipalities. These open houses saw over 600 in attendance, and we are able to collect various amounts of comments related to growth management, the natural environment, the agricultural system, as well as site-specific questions, And these were then able to be collected and reviewed by staff for incorporation into the next revised official plan that you saw before yourselves. This was brought to council on June 2024 and was a direct response to the comment that we did receive in spring 2024. The revised official plan also was accompanied by a interactive official plan zone map that showed the designations for the proposed official plan, as well as a comparator with what was currently existing on various properties throughout the county. 2 open houses were also held in July 2024. And we also held 40 in-person site-specific public meetings at the lower tier municipalities in July. All the feedback that was heard at these meetings was consolidated, considered, and where applicable or able to be implemented into the official plan based on provincial policy was done so. We're currently in phase 6 of this project. Before you'll see a revised official plan that looks to address all the comments that we have heard to date. It looks to address the changes in provincial policy that I'll get into. And it also looks to balance the policies that are provided to us for required regulations and required compliance from the province with the needs and interests of local residents that we've heard throughout this official plan project. So the meeting before you today, this statutory public meeting, meets the statutory public meeting requirements of the Planning Act. And then County Council, you will utilize the information that you have before you today, as well as all the feedback that we've heard previously to make a decision on the official plan. The final phase of this project includes providing this information and the official plan and the background documents to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for final approval. Under the Planning Act, he is the final approval authority of the official plan, and that is what we would proceed with following Council's adoption, should Council choose to adopt the official plan today. The ministry will review the official plan and the background documents we provide, and they have 120 days to make a decision. The decision could be to accept the official plan with modifications, or extend the deadline for review. We have seen in past official plan reviews that it could take anywhere between 120 days to 2 years to approve an official plan. So now I'll provide a quick summary of what the official plan includes, and then go into what comments were heard and the key changes that were made from the last iteration that you saw. So the official plan, the key elements include directing growth and intensification to settlement areas in order to protect our agricultural lands. Again, protecting agricultural resources so that the agricultural lands and the diversification of those uses can continue on into the future. Promoting economic growth and development, encouraging well-designed built form that is accessible and quality and considered safe spaces. There is the aspects of the official plan that speak to preserving the cultural heritage values of the county, as well as accommodating appropriate services and infrastructure for the longevity of the community and residents. And finally, increasing a variety of housing types and sizes to meet the diverse range of needs of residents and workers that we're seeing. So since the release of the official plan in June 2024, 48 comments were received by staff from members of the public, stakeholders, and commenting agencies. And these were related to the following themes: growth management, resource conservation and protection, agricultural systems, development and intensification, provincial policy changes, and then there was also comments of support, as well as various site-specific matters that were dealt with on a site-specific basis. The key changes that were made to the document that you see in front of you was changes made to ensure they were consistent with the provincial planning statement, which was released in August 2020, August 20th, 2024, and will become adopted on October 20th, 2024. The first theme of comment that we received related to growth management, particularly related to the request for settlement area expansions or the need to intensify and diversify the amount of housing that we have in our current settlement areas. The comprehensive review is the first key document that guided the settlement area expansions and the growth that we're anticipated to see in Perth County. So as you can see on the screen, and you would have seen in the comprehensive review, Perth County is expected to grow to almost 63,000 people by 2051, and approximately 30,000 jobs by 2051 as well. Approximately 90% of this future growth is anticipated to be accommodated within the county's settlement areas. And using this information, it was identified that the county needs 245 gross hectares for residential, commercial, and institutional lands, as well as 165 gross hectares for employment lands. On the screen in front of you, you'll see the surplus and deficit of lands that was identified by the comprehensive review. And then on the other column, you'll see the regional market approach that was taken by staff to apply the comprehensive review to lands within the county. So in order to apply a regional market approach and determine what lands needed to be brought in and the amount of lands that needed to be brought in and where those lands needed to be brought in, an inventory of vacant and underutilized lands was first undertaken. Then there was also consideration of potential expansion areas. So staff took a look at where infrastructure availability currently was and the cost that would be associated with extending servicing to certain areas of the county. A logical phase progression of development. So looking to round out development rather than create it in like a linear type of development, which would increase the infrastructure costs. MDS compliance was also undertaken, as well as looking at areas that would have a minimal impact on the agricultural system. So using all of these criteria and evaluating lands, it was determined that a regional market approach for land allocation was to be undertaken. So this was undertaken in consultation with the province, as well as with the lower tier member municipalities at various stages of the process, starting in 2022, ending in 2023, for input. And now before you, you will see the areas that we have proposed for expansion. So if you look on the screen, you'll see a yellow or yellowy orange outline. This outline illustrates the existing settlement area boundaries that are current as of today within our settlement areas. The areas outside of the yellow outline, you'll see are the areas that we have proposed to add. So the settlement area boundary is shown in red. Anything colored in has been proposed to be brought into the settlement area boundary. Anything that is outside of the red boundary is not proposed to be brought in. And these lands, they align with the hectares that I showed you on the previous slide of how many lands are being brought in for residential versus how many lands are being brought in for employment. Sorry, and this slide also continues the same concept. This is just for Shakespeare and Mitchell. The next theme of comments we received related to resource conservation and protection. So this theme is all encompassing, I would say, based on recent changes to provincial policy. So we consider resource conservation and protection to include natural environment features, source water protection, natural hazards, energy sources, minerals, aggregates, and petroleum resources. So the main realm of comments we did receive were from conservation authorities, ensuring that our official plan and the policies within were in alignment with recent changes to different Ontario regulations, as well as different conservation authorities acts, that sort of stuff that they had recently changed in provincial policies. The next section of policy alignment related to previous decisions of council, as well as in alignment with the provincial policy statement. Items like wind energy and battery energy system storage were included in the official plan, but regarding council's decision for previous wind energy proposals and development proposals, we have limited that use within the official plan to just individual farm owners and farm use. It won't be permitted on a mass scale. The next theme is related to the natural environment designation, which I just wanted to provide you with an update on. There were further modifications made to the natural environment designation since you saw this before you previously. The result of that was different environmental site assessments that were received by county staff, as well as cross-referencing with Ministry of Natural Resources data, as well as Ministry of Environment data. All of this resulted in a further reduction of the natural environment designation, and overall the increase in natural environment designation now represents 0.7% of lands within the county. The next theme of comments related to agriculture. There was an understanding from the beginning that agriculture is a prime source of pride as well as economic gain for the county, and there is incentive and interest in protecting those lands for the long term through this official plan as well as through other policies that the county can inhibit. Permissions for on-site farm labor accommodation is included in the official plan. This is in alignment with the changes to the provincial planning statement, as well as severancing of surplus farm dwelling severances. Further, to mitigate land use conflicts, the OP recognizes that current MDS setbacks are considered compliant with MDS based on the settlement area expansions. There's policies within that recommend zoning bylaws to be updated to recognize those existing MDS settlement kind of conflicts as compliant. Finally, there is further clarity provided in the official plan that clarifies that agricultural operations can continue and are permitted in the natural environment designation. This is also in alignment with the PPS 2024. The next theme relates to development and intensification, and I've kind of summarized it into the three key themes within. One of them being housing options. In order to address housing options, which is a new requirement in the PPS, that the county provide a wide range of housing options for its residents. Service settlement areas have been given a required target minimum of 15 units per hectare. There's also the requirement that 30% of new residential dwellings to be in forms that are other than single and semi-detached. And finally, there is the expectation that 15% of new dwellings within the county will be through intensification. The next theme surrounds affordable housing. It was recognized by the province in the new PPS that housing should be done in consultation with the service provider, who in our case is the city of Stratford, and recognizing that affordable housing should be not just applied at a market basis or a non-market basis, but should be a collaborative approach. As such, the county and staff have recommended that in service settlement areas, there should be a 20% target that new development be in the form of affordable housing. Finally, there is the addition of additional residential units. This was implemented through the PPS again, something that we already had in the official plan, but further solidified where those additional residential units would be permitted. 3 residential units are now permitted on a lot. It can be in either a single detached dwelling, a semi-detached dwelling, or a townhouse type dwelling. 2 units are permitted in the primary structure if there is the proposed additional residential unit in an ancillary structure, but to a maximum of 3 units per property. And finally, this is permitted in both the settlement areas as well as within the agricultural system. And something to note that didn't or wasn't included on the slide is that farm worker housing is not considered an additional dwelling unit in the agricultural area. And finally, we get to the provincial policy changes. You would have seen these in the report that you received last council meeting, but to summarize the specific changes that went before the official plan as a result. Settlement area expansions are now permitted as of right at any time, subject to new rules and regulations and tests that the province would like municipalities to consider when considering expansions. This has also resulted in the removal of candidate lands from the official plan, as it was deemed they were no longer valid as a land use designation, and they potentially would create a perception that these lands would be brought in before others, when that's no longer the case, since any lands can be considered at any time. There was also the identification of our existing and emerging downtowns as strategic growth areas. This is included in the definition of the PPS, so was brought over into the official plan as well. There's now minimum intensification and redevelopment targets within the official plan, as well as minimum housing targets within the official plan. There is the protection of a geographically continuous agricultural system, which is recognized, and there is also additional requirements for agricultural impact assessments to be undertaken when non-agricultural uses are proposed in the agricultural area. There is an additional protection for employment areas. These include the introduction of policy that removes and prohibits certain uses from these specific areas, as well as requires the inclusion or special consideration be given, I'll say, to lands within 300 meters of employment areas to ensure that there won't be potentially any land use conflicts if sensitive uses are proposed within those 300 meters. There was additional policy to encourage watershed planning that was included in the official plan. And finally, something that was included in the upfront section and something that we have been aware of, but the inclusion of policy that requires the official plan and zoning bylaws to be kept up to date with the PPS 2024. Based on that, you will see a report, in the report, the attachment. It includes a PPS compliance table or consistency status table. You'll be able to see each section of the official plan and how it aligns with each section of the provincial planning statement. I will get used to that eventually. Next, I wanted to provide a quick summary of what community engagement looked like throughout this process and how we received feedback from the public and how it was incorporated to date. So you'll see on the slide in front of you, we hosted, just to quickly summarize, there was community event booths held at various fall fairs. There were 18 county council meetings held before you. There were various stakeholder meetings and engagement, focus groups and technical committees to provide technical consideration and feedback on the official plan. We undertook 10 open houses. We also received over 200 comments from the public that were directly addressed or considered where possible. There was also mail out to various members of the public regarding the official plan, and then a full property mail out to 23,000 properties to obtain feedback, make people aware of what the official plan is and how they can contribute to this document. Based on the community engagement that has been held to date, we have been consistent with the provincial policies or with the Planning Act that requires at least one open house or public meeting to be held. So we have exceeded those expectations of the province when it comes to engagement. So that concludes my summary on the official plan. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. If not, I can happily have them after the delegates speak.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I know there's several members of the public who have already registered to be delegations. We're going to give you an opportunity to speak, and anyone else then after that wishes to speak after we go through this list that I have here. So I'm going to call you up one at a time. If you come to the microphone, tell us your name and what group or organization you are representing. So the first on my list is Julianne von Westerholt from MHBC Planning, and I think she represents Eden Grove.
Good morning again. I'm here this morning to speak to you with respect to the property known as 91 Road 164 Perth Road in North Perth. I'm representing our clients, the Eden Grove Board, regarding their lands. The subject lands are identified in red on the attached slide and have frontage onto Highway 23 North or Perth Road 164, which is now a provincial highway. The surrounding non-agricultural uses include a motel, an automotive dealer, and repair shop. The lands are located on the west side of Highway 23 and situated approximately 2 kilometers from the village of Gowanstown. The lands contain multiple buildings as well as infrastructure and communal services for water and sanitary. The subject lands were used as a provincial mental health facility from 1960s to the late 1990s. Then the lands were rezoned to permit a hotel and conference center and a golf course. Subsequently, they were also rezoned to allow a spiritual retreat. These lands are not currently being used for agriculture and have been not used for that for over 60 years. In this regard, I wanted to point out the official plan designation. We are encouraged by the county's report in that they have carried over a special policy designation for agriculture, special policy designation 31. The owner supports this carryover. However, this particular site-specific policy permits uses such as a place of worship, a retreat center, a short-term accommodation, a hotel and conference center with a maximum of 266 rooms. These permitted uses, again, are not agricultural uses. I wanted to also outline that there's a discrepancy between the existing zoning permissions and the special policy. The zoning bylaw, right now, the regulation is a site-specific regulation 27, agriculture with the regulation 27. It permits the following uses: a nursing home with a maximum of 100 units, a hotel and conference center with a maximum of 266 rooms, including all accessory retail and within the existing buildings. The residential land, it also permits a residential land lease development with a maximum of 100 attached dwellings, for example, semi-detached and or townhouses. It permits commercial recreational uses, a fitness center and swimming pool, a private 9-hole golf course, accessory uses and buildings and structures. The current owners have submitted a site plan application, including some of the permitted uses in the zoning, and this process is underway. The existing permitted uses are not agricultural uses. The owners intend to proceed with the above noted permitted uses. The official plan and zoning bylaw continue to not align. We are requesting that the proposed special policy area 31 that staff have put forward be revised to include the already permitted uses that are in the zoning bylaw and plan for the site. The following is a list that includes the combination of the permitted uses in the official plan and zoning bylaw in order to bring them together and make them align. These include place of worship, retreat center with short-term accommodation, nursing home with a maximum of 100 units, hotel and conference center, maximum of 266 rooms, including accessory retail, residential land lease development, maximum of 100 attached dwellings, commercial recreational uses, the private 9-hole golf course, and accessory uses, buildings and structures. This will finally align the two documents, and many of these uses are already currently permitted in the zoning bylaw. In conclusion, the subject lands have not been in agricultural production for over 60 years and will not revert to agriculture. Significant infrastructure services and buildings already exist on the lands and are planned for adaptive reuse. The official plan and zoning bylaw already permit numerous non-agricultural uses. The owner requests that the existing special policy area be amended to include these uses already permitted in the current zoning. And so that the two documents align, keeping in mind that our request is to allow housing on private communal system. Thank you. That is the extent of my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of council? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presenter is Adrian Tooling from the spokesperson for Get Concerned Perth County. Microphone.
Just how do we handle these requests then?
Well, we can have planning staff answer as we go along. Is that what you wish to do? Okay, so thank you, Adriana, for sitting down. We'll let Moira and or Andrea come up and address, I guess, each one.
So based on our understanding, the application was handled in North Perth. It was handled by Nathan Garland, who's the development planner on the file. The applicant applied for an official plan amendment to permit residential development on in October 2022. A public meeting was held for the official plan amendment on January 26, 2023. Staff then confirmed, official plan managing staff then confirmed in October that a site-specific OPA would be required, and the request that was previously submitted by the delegate would not be included or considered in the official plan. The second round of pre-consultation comments were then submitted and held in November 2023. This is when the county deemed the application to be incomplete, and staff did not feel that they could support the application at the time because it is in the agricultural area, particularly within the prime agricultural area, and the proposal is not in alignment with an agricultural use. The request for lands wasn't considered in the vacant or underutilized lands allocation undertaken as the part of the official plan, just because the lands are not in a settlement area boundary. And provincial policy directs us to direct growth to areas that can be serviced, ensure that there's different infrastructure available to cater to this type of development. And then there has also been meetings with the planning department, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the applicant and the delegate to discuss the meeting and the file twice. This happened in April 2023 and again in October 2023. At this time, the application is deemed insufficient. There's not enough information for staff to provide approval of this application. So the application is awaiting, staff are awaiting the application to be either resubmitted or withdrawn. It was a lengthy summary, but I hope that maybe answered the status of it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Kassenberg?
Thank you. Just supplementary to that, then, the infrastructure is there. It's not, of course, operative at this point, some of it anyway. What is the path ahead for this applicant? You suggested withdrawal or some other revision. Can you sort of comment on that? And how does that kind of jive with the draft of the new official plan?
I think I would rather call on Nathan Garland to answer the specifics, just because he was the one who wrote those comments. Let me see if he can. Is that okay, Gordon? Nathan, can I please call on you to answer that question?
Good morning, county councilors. Through the warden, so there is an application submitted to intensify the site to, I'll say, go beyond what is currently permitted in the zoning bylaw. So that's the reference to the application form in front of us right now. What's the path forward for the site? I'm not entirely clear. There is somewhat up to North Perth Council to also see that vision and get behind, I'll say, or come forward with the applicant on that and make some, I'll say, discernment or decisions around that as well too. It would also anticipate to come back to county council at this point in time, sometimes in future for a site specific amendment to consider that. So that's, I guess, the gist of where the current application is now, or the proposed application. There is infrastructure on site. There was an old stormwater management, or sorry, an old sewage system that was previously in place, as well as underground plumbing. The existing building is in place. There's some repairs that are required, and they have submitted building permit applications for those to modify and intensify them. There is a number of approval processes required, Ministry of Environment, MTO, a number of different agencies. So the path forward is, I'll say, longer and more complex because they are creating a settlement area. It is a fairly involved process to look at creating that amount of housing or density out in that area. So that's some of the complexity behind that as well too. So through the warden, that would be my comments. I don't know if that's.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Cass.
So with the new draft official plan, would the current application that you've received, if extrapolated to they've checked all the boxes, would they need an official plan amendment to the new official plan to become compliant or in suitable state?
Through the warden, to achieve what they would like to achieve, the ultimate end goal, they would need a new official plan amendment through that. That's part of the requirement because it does go beyond what the zoning currently allows. So I have to see the new official plan and I might defer to Moira for that, but and the two aligning, I haven't double checked those specific policies around that, but yeah, that would be to achieve what they ultimately want to achieve for the density intensification. They do need a new official plan amendment to go beyond what is allowed on the site currently through the zoning provisions. So that's that intensification process. It's going beyond that, I'll say 100 units plus the hotel and conference center. There is an intensification beyond that allowable provision currently under the zoning bylaw.
And if I can just ask a technical question, if I understood things after the approval of a draft new official plan and then the provincial consent to it, there is a freeze out period with regards to official plan amendments or no?
So any official plan amendments that are received, say we receive one tomorrow, would still be amending the current official plan, the new draft official plan that's in before you. It's not officially enacted or in place until the minister approves it. So any official plan amendments that are received, I guess we'll call it the waiting period or the review period, it would then be brought into the new official plan as a housekeeping amendment or consolidation that is typically done on an annual basis.
Okay, we're all good. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move on to Adriana Tulin from Get Concerned Perth County.
Good morning, Warden Agates, members of council, planning staff, and neighbors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Adriana, and I'm here representing Get Concerned Perth County. I am representing a community of concerned citizens, including close to 400 constituents who signed a petition delivered to Perth County last Thursday in opposition to Official Plan Amendment 222. We endorse the final draft of this official plan. This document is essential for guiding sustainable growth in Perth County over the next 25 years. It's clearly built on evidence-based policies, forecasts, community priorities, and planning expertise, ensuring that development is aligned with our infrastructure and long-term community needs. As Council considers adopting this plan, it's important that development adheres to its policies. The Provincial Policy Statement or Planning Statement 2024 emphasizes the need for creating complete communities, ensuring that residents have access to essential services, housing, transportation, and employment. The official plan mirrors this vision, ensuring that growth is not just about the quantity of development, but about how it aligns with the capacity of our infrastructure and public services. When terms like efficient use of land or potential for a property are used to justify development, these concepts, while valuable, can sometimes be applied in ways that favor short-term development goals over long-term community interests. Development potential is an important consideration, but it is to be weighed carefully within the broader framework of the official plan. Planning recommendations that rely on these ambiguous concepts without considering infrastructure capacity or community needs can risk tilting the balance toward the developer's priorities. It's important to acknowledge the significant role developers play in facilitating growth, without question. But we also need to recognize that developers' interests may not always align with the broader interests of the community. While planning recommendations provide valuable guidance, Council must ensure that developments or decisions are made with full awareness of how these recommendations fit within the plan's long-term vision for the county. Planning must be driven by what's best for the community, not solely the immediate potential of a development opportunity. The Provincial Policy Statement 2024 highlights the importance of ensuring that infrastructure capacity and community needs are fully understood before approving developments. This makes it essential for Council to carefully evaluate each recommendation and ensure decisions are informed by the long-term sustainability of the community, not just the immediate feasibility of a project. To be clear, any deviation from the official plan is a deviation from evidence-based policy, from goals that align with our communities, and from sustainable growth. The official plan was created to guide development thoughtfully and responsibly, ensuring that growth serves all residents and is supported by the appropriate infrastructure and services. Council's responsibility is not just to adopt the official plan, but to ensure it's upheld. The plan provides the flexibility needed to adapt to unique circumstances, but it also ensures that growth is balanced and sustainable. Our constituents and planning experts have raised valid concerns about the risks of not following, and we need to ensure that all decisions are informed by these realities. We ask that Council adopt this final draft of the official plan and ensure that all current and future development proposals adhere to its policies for all the reasons it exists, including consistency and conformity that was highlighted on one of the first slides of the presentation today. This plan represents a shared vision for sustainable growth, and following it is essential to protecting the well-being of Perth County and its residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moira, do you have any response? No? Okay, any questions from members of council? Councilor Kassenberg?
Just want to be sure that I clarify with regards to the timeline here again, the provisions of the new official plan, if approved, do not take force until the province has and the minister has signed off on this. Is that correct?
Through the warden, that's correct. The official plan policies will not be enforced. Oh,
Can you speak up, please?
sorry. Through the warden, the official plan policies will not be enforced until the minister approves the official plan. I believe that there could have been also maybe touched on is the previous PPS. And Planning Act had a 2-year probation period for official plan amendments. That is no longer in place under one of the recent changes to the Planning Act.
If I might, so then applications that are in our hopper at the point of the minister proclaiming or authorizing the new official plan, are they subject to the old official plan's regulations as of that move forward date or not?
They would be considered under the, I guess at that point, staff would be recommending that the planning applications consider both policies so that when the minister does approve the official plan, we can ensure that they're compliant with both.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll move on to our next presenter, and that's Caroline Baker from Baker Planning Group, and she's representing the Trident Group.
It was a little light in the back, so I'm guessing it might have been the mic. I'm also a little bit short, so I will move that to the appropriate height. Thank you very much for letting us delegate this morning with respect to a proposed development within the community of Shakespeare. I am here on behalf of Trident Group, as well as the property owners of 2148 and 2160 line 34. Just a brief overview and context in terms of the community in Shakespeare. I'm sure you're all very familiar with its layout and existing uses. It is a community that is bordered on 4 intersections or 4 quadrants and does include a range of residential and commercial as well as institutional uses. As noted in the staff presentation, there are recommendations in the new official plan related to settlement boundary expansions in the community of Shakespeare. There is a parcel of land on, I'll say, the northwest side of the community or northwest of the main intersection that would be included for future residential development. There are no further boundary expansions recommended in Shakespeare. My understanding through discussions with county and township staff and following along in the OP process, the majority of growth in the county of Perth was allocated to the settlement area of Listowel, taking direction that growth is reviewed at a county level for regional market area. So land needs and housing needs for the entire county are considered county-wide, and settlement area direction was to Listowel, even though certainly Shakespeare is a fair geographical distance from that community. The request through Trident in meeting with county and township staff, as well as several agencies, is to consider a settlement boundary expansion on the northeast side of the community in terms of adding new residential and commercial and retirement home facilities. These requests and discussions have been occurring with staff for approximately 2 years. The owner has invested significant resources and studies working with staff to look at the boundary expansion. A conceptual site plan is before you on the screen, again, looking at a mix of land uses, including the provision of a range of housing types, single detached townhouses, affordable housing units, a retirement home, and a commercial block. This is just slightly a closer image in terms of the conceptual plan that has been prepared, working with the staff and the consultants. As noted, there has been ongoing meetings with staff. Certainly, this property is on an MTO corridor. They haven't been engaged and consulted in terms of work. On behalf of Trident and the property owners, we've submitted 2 letters or 2 submissions to county staff for consideration as part of the OP that's before you this morning. We understood in terms of response from county staff that these lands would not be considered because the majority of growth is being allocated to Listowel, and they gave priority to other lands based on a high-level servicing assessment. We want to spend a few minutes just in relation to that response from staff. It's my understanding in allocating new growth for settlement areas, county staff undertook ranking or scorecards on a variety of components from servicing, transportation, MDS, and land use compatibility, amongst others. In that ranking, it was determined at a high level that lands on the west side of Shakespeare were able to be serviced more easily than on on the west side than on the east side, which is the land before you this morning. Certainly, Trident has retained Grit Engineering, who has prepared a full functional servicing report and geotechnical analysis to demonstrate the feasibility of servicing the subject site that I am speaking to you. Certainly, this is a more detailed study in terms of serviceability, focusing on a specific site, demonstrating that it can accommodate growth. Crozier has also been retained to work with the Ministry of Transportation. I can pleasantly report we've had positive conversations with MTO related to access and indication from MTO that the proposed access on the highway does meet their setback criteria in their guidelines, and they will work with us to review a traffic study. A housing expert has also been retained to look at this site from a provincial policy statement and how growth is allocated under the PPS. As mentioned in the staff presentation, we do have a new PPS coming in effect this weekend, and there have been some changes that I believe are important and or critical to assessing the new draft official plan before you this morning. Certainly, the new PPS looks to a 25-year planning horizon to allocate growth and development. However, it now does provide the option to allocate growth up to 30 years. It does provide that additional 5 years of planning horizon that can be assessed. And this property could assist in bridging that gap between the 25 and the 30 years. Their preliminary conclusion was that there's a separate and distinct need for housing in Perth East from other communities, again, given resources, schooling, and geographical location, and that the ability to accommodate both a retirement home and affordable housing units is a unique opportunity for the county. Just a quick note on the ability of the site to be developed. Archaeological has been complete and cleared. There's no defined natural features and no regulated areas within the Upper Thames Region Conservation Authority. So certainly the question is probably in terms of the owner filing privately led official plan amendment applications to expand the settlement boundary as opposed to making this request before you this morning. Certainly it is an option for Trident to submit privately led applications in terms of boundary expansion. As you can appreciate, there's a cost and a time to preparing that official plan amendment, looking at upwards of a year to work through that process. This does allow the property to be developed and to come online sooner to meet the housing need, including affordable housing units. Of course, any development would still be subject to approval of a draft plan of subdivision and a rezoning with all the necessary technical studies, but this certainly does assist in streamlining the planning approvals and the process and work for both staff and the applicant. That would be the conclusion of my presentation. In summary, it is the request to include the proposed lands within the settlement area. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Moira, would you like to make comments?
Through the warden, we were in consultation with the delegate previously about this matter, about bringing these lands into the settlement area boundary. For that reason, something that we wanted to include was that chart that you would have seen on the presentation originally that looked at what the identified land need was versus what the regional approach undertaken to allocate lands was undertaken. So if you look at or refer back to that chart, you'll see that there was an identified need in the comp review for 3 hectares to be allocated to Shakespeare to accommodate for housing. There was 7 hectares allocated to Shakespeare for housing needs. That includes residential, institutional, and commercial. That is kind of how the regional approach was undertaken. It looked at not just where lands were needing to be allocated, but applying more hectares of land and expanding settlement areas outside of just Listowel. Something that we considered when taking a look at this submission was the new tests within the PPS 2024 for settlement area expansion. These include the identified need to designate and plan for additional lands. As we had just undertaken the comp review, that had identified the lands needed as recent as 2023 and up to 2051. We determined that there wasn't an additional need to bring these lands in at this time, which is why we had directed the delegate to pursue a separate official plan amendment. There also is requirements and tests that speak to having sufficient capacity, whether the lands compromise special crop areas, if there's been alternative locations evaluated, whether the expansion lands comply with minimum distance separation, whether there's impacts on the agricultural system, and whether it provides for a phased progression of development. And for those various tests that need to be considered under the PPS 2024, we felt that an official plan amendment would be more suitable for this type of application at this time. And I guess one last consideration is the ministry review period. We're not quite sure how long it will take. So if this is brought into the official plan, then there is potential that development can't start for another 2 years still, because that's potentially how long the minister could take to approve this official plan. Now, with the PPS 2024 coming into or being enacted as of October 20th, an official plan amendment could begin then, regardless of whether the current official plan considers and includes policies that speak to the PPS 2024. There are policies in that provincial statement that are very clear that planning decisions should be made with regard to consistencies with the PPS 2024, regardless of what is said in local policy.
Okay, thank you. Questions from members of council? Council McDermott?
It should be not especially a question. It should be noted that what you call new lands in Shakespeare on the northwest part, that has been in the official plan before, and it had come out, and now it's just going back in again. So it's not really new land.
The land to the north part of 24, you're saying it was removed previously with an official plan amendment and then brought back in, right?
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move to our next presenter, and that's Josh Borson. He's a director with the Grain Farmers of Ontario, and he's representing Grain Farmers of Ontario, Perth County.
Good morning, councillors. Sorry, it's difficult to hear in the back, so hopefully this mic will translate back. As you mentioned, my name is Josh Borson. I'm a local farmer here in Perth County, just north of Stratford, and currently I serve as Director for Grain Farmers of Ontario for Perth County. And so here today, I'm representing farmers in the county with comments regarding the official plan. But it's important to note that Grain Farmers of Ontario is the largest commodity organization in the province, and currently I also sit as Vice Chair of the board provincially. So I don't take these comments lightly. You know, as far as the official plan goes, I wanted to note that while I recognize the need to proceed with this and the delays that may occur due to minister holdups, etc., you know, the consultation process for this plan was, in my opinion, done relatively poorly as far as a farmer's perspective goes. Farmers are busy in July and August in this region with harvest, and we're busy again in October. I really should be out in the fields right now today, but it's important, so I'm here. With that to note, like, I recognize there was changes made by council to even incorporate these consultation processes, and it was noted by planners here today about how much consulting was supposedly done. But the question I have is, if we were consulting with stakeholders, why wasn't our commodity organization one of them, or others perhaps? I don't know why we weren't reached out to. As far as the planning go, or the official plan goes, my comments are going to be related more or less strictly to agriculture. Well, the goals of the county plan at times I think are kind of at odds with each other, and what I'll highlight is from the plan itself, you know, to emphasize the importance of agriculture in Perth County and implement a policy framework aimed at protecting and preserving agriculture. With that in mind, under section J, we want to identify, maintain, restore, and improve natural environment features and linkages throughout the county. I don't disagree with that on the face of it, but the actual implementation of that has really been lackluster over the years. And I have an example from our neighbors where rail line was decommissioned decades ago, and the farmer was able to purchase that land and could convert it back to agriculture, so it wouldn't be underutilized. It wouldn't be essentially wasteful, if you will, or from our perspective as a farmer, wasteful. They didn't have the resources at the time to clean it up. They couldn't take the trees. There were no trees at the time of purchase, but then the trees grew in as they will, and the brush and everything else. And then following that, after a decade or two, they were able to have the resources to clear that up, to clean that up, to turn that back to productive agriculture. And now the aerial mapping, the zoning, the restrictions of the natural resource designation entirely prevent them from doing that, creating a disconnect, creating issues. So I understand the importance and the value of preserving these natural areas, but we have to sometimes realize that that was farmland taken from farmers to create a rail line. At the time, a very necessary thing. The rail line was removed. The farmer would like to return it back to agriculture, and now they're prevented from doing so because of some of the policies in the statement or in the plan, or just the way the policies are interpreted. And that's the other reason I'm here today. It's not that this council and this plan per se may cause issues today. It's the interpretation of this plan in 10 or 20 years from now that may cause the issues. Now, there is always often good intent, and I believe this council, for the most part, has good intent in the plan, but it's the good intentions that go astray that cause most of the issues, and it's most of the reason why I'm involved provincially in my organization, because not only municipally, but provincially and federally, we have issues where good intended legislation has a lot of unintended consequences. I wanted to note that I myself have some lands adjoining natural resource areas, and I tried to use the tools that were provided or supposedly provided to the public to assess whether we were going to be impacted by this plan, and I have not to date over the last 2 weeks been able to use that portal. It will not load. I have called the county council plan, or rather the county planning office, to ask for assistance without that call being returned. So if the public can't even assess whether they're impacted, we are having an issue. And I know there were issues earlier throughout this process in February or March. And I made comments then. And I don't think a great deal of those comments have been taken into account as far as farmland goes. You know, it stated in the presentation that farming can continue adjacent to land and within natural resource areas, but in practice, current policies don't allow for that to happen in many cases. Farmers are restricted from building or restricted from removing areas that have become overgrown over the years, depending on this aerial mapping that was conducted recently, but doesn't reflect past history. Moreover, in conclusion, I think at this point we've come very, very far in this process, and I think that it could have been handled a little bit better. Whether you have the appetite today or not to delay, I'll leave to council, but I would suggest that delaying the passage of this until maybe more wholesome discussion could be had. Farmers in this county represent the largest landowner group overall, and I feel that they were extremely under consulted on this, given the timing of the consultation process. There's a quote from the chair of our organization that I want to leave you with that stands out and resonates strongly with me. And that's preserving farmland without preserving the ability of the farmer to farm it is simply preserving nature, not farms. Thank you, members of council.
Okay, thank you. Moira, would you like to respond?
Through the warden, just one item to speak to regarding the consultation and engagement of the agricultural community. As one of those technical committee groups or the stakeholders that I spoke of previously, the Agricultural Advisory Committee was a consistent meeting group that the staff met with throughout this process. Representatives on that committee include the CFFO, the NFM, and the OFA. We've been in constant consultation with those members, with in-person meetings, with the Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting, as well as different letters, emails, and calls that have created a dialogue for some of the influences that have gone into the different policies that are related to the agricultural area, particularly as it relates to MDS and compliance and longevity of the agricultural area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from members of council? Councillor Smith?
Yes, Mara, can you speak to the delegate's question about the portal being down? Has it been down for a couple of weeks?
I can't speak to that. I'm not entirely sure. We'll take a look on that. It's not supposed to be down. The intention was that it would remain until the plan is approved by the province, at which time the layers that are shown on that plan are then going to be transferred over to our typical interactive mapping system. I will say I was able to, without knowing the delegates' complete address and properties owned, I was able to take a look at least through our naming information based on the property that we have listed for him, and the natural environment designation is not located on the property, at least the one that we have listed for him. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thanks. I'll just say that Tyler is on it right now. It is working. I'm not sure what glitches there were with Mr. Borson, but it is working at this time. So, and in comments to the farmers, there's many of us sitting on this council who are farmers. I am one of them. And you know, it's never a good time no matter what we're doing, but if we want to make time for something like this, we will. And it's a testament that we're all here this morning. I should be home in the field too, but I'm here. So we'll go on with our next delegation, and that's John Van Dyke. If he's here, if he would please come to the mic. You don't look like John, but
Well, he's in the field.
he's in the field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, and staff. I am Anna Van Dyke, and thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of John Van Dyke of Dycroft Farms. So John and I had a recent meeting with Mr. Matthew Ray, and we explained to him that nowhere in the provincial policy statement does it say that natural heritage includes land that is being used for agricultural purposes, nor does it say that natural heritage includes trees that have been recently planted, say in the last 20 to 30 years, that are growing on people's lawns and backyards. And he agreed. So we understand that you wish to catalog bushes, ditches, and wetlands and such that have been in existence for generations. But the definition of heritage is defined as features belonging to a culture created in the past and still having historical importance today. And natural is defined as found in nature and not involving anything made or done by people. So if I put those two definitions together, natural heritage would mean something in nature, not done by humans, that have been there for many, many decades. And this is definitely not what Perth County's definition is. So in summary, it is absolutely unwarranted to have any land be deemed natural environment if a person has planted trees in the last 50 years minimum. And definitely any land used for agricultural purposes should never have the term natural environment used. Only historical maps should actually be used for determining natural heritage sites. Perth County is currently going way beyond the parameters of this, and Mr. Ray agreed that the province is not asking for more than the natural heritage sites to be mapped. We ask that Perth County revise further its natural environment / natural heritage mapping, as currently there are many flaws, and is very overreaching on property owners in Perth County. And personally, we were speaking of intentions earlier. My in-laws did not intend for what they did to the property to be restrictive on any way on us or our future, our grandchildren. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moira, do you wish to make comments?
Through the warden, we did meet with the delegate previously back in July regarding this matter and the interpretation of the Official Planning Act, of the provincial policy statement at the time, the Ontario Planning Act, as well as the supporting documents that the province has provided in permitting the designation of natural environment lands. The natural environment designation was undertaken through a study, and it is compliant with what we call the Natural Heritage Reference Manual. This is a document that guides municipalities in designating these natural heritage systems and natural environment systems. The specific reference to whether or not it is consistent with the provincial policy statement or provincial planning statement. It was a recent, excuse me, it was a change that was undertaken in 2005 to the provincial policy statement at the time, where systems needed to be mapped rather than features themselves. At this time, the natural environment, natural heritage designation is consistent with provincial policy. Should that change, the county can undertake a additional review of that. Again, the official plan is undertaken, or a review of the official plan is undertaken every 5 years. So should provincial policy change where it's not referencing this natural heritage system anymore, at that time, staff could undertake a review of the official plan to ensure that it is compliant. However, at this time, it's my professional planning opinion that it is compliant with the provincial policy statement.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Orr?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but are we not reviewing our tree bylaws?
I believe the tree bylaw is currently being reviewed.
Right, and it's like two separate things in a way. I mean, they are combined, but we are addressing tree issues right now. It just hasn't come forward.
Correct. Okay, Councillor Jankowski?
Through you, Warden, as the chair of the agricultural working group, the review is being undertaken, but no decisions have been made yet with respect to the tree bylaw. Just wanted to provide that point of information.
Okay, Councillor McDermott?
Yeah, if you did plant trees or anything like that, or put a pond or anything like that in, that would now be captured in natural heritage.
The Natural Heritage System study does not differentiate between natural plantations, we'll say, or natural forests, treed areas, and treed areas that were planted by a member of the public, a landowner, or a member of the municipality. It doesn't differentiate because it's identified that both provide ecological value, whether it's not getting into the scientific details, it's not my area of expertise, but essentially the Natural Heritage System study says that both natural and a planted forests have value to the natural system as a whole.
But then if you did plant it and did want to change that in the future, that would be extremely difficult.
The natural environment designation and the policies within the provincial policy statement, they recognize that forestry is a common occurrence in the natural environment area and provides permissions and policies for that type of use.
So you could cut trees, or you could fill in a pond, or you could do anything like that.
There might be other matters subject to the tree conservation bylaw, but under the official plan policies, that's not something that it covers.
Okay, any other questions from council? No? Okay, thank you. If not, we'll move on to our next presenters. And we have Stephanie Pratt from Consulting Planner from Marcatus, Catherine Ritzma from Stratford Lawyers, and Dwayne Dietrich is the owner.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Warden Eggets, and to all mayors and deputy mayors and to staff of the County of Perth. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the draft official plan. My name is Catherine Ritzma. I'm lawyer for Steeple High Farms Limited, who is a farm corporation in Perth County. Its president is Dwayne Dietrich. He's seated immediately behind me in the second row. And also with us today is Stephanie Pratt, and she is a planner with Arcadis Surveyors. Arcadis has been assisting Steeple High and Dwayne since the spring when the official plan amendments were circulated to the public. And lastly, I have Leanne McDonald. She is a staff person in our office. She is a title searcher extraordinaire, and she deals with all of our files that deal with any planning issues. So she has assisted me with the tech part of this and some of the legal issues. And because I don't have my proper glasses, she's actually going to do the clicker because I can't see it. Thank you. So the agenda is I'm going to give a very brief introduction of why we're here, as well as present a video that was done by drone. Stephanie will do the planning issues. And lastly, my client, Dwayne Dietrich, would like to speak to council. So if we could start. You've got it. Good. So the subject property that we're dealing with that is owned by my client is at 2209, line 29, Perth East. It's also known as Lot 21, Concession 5, formerly Southeast Oak, now Perth East. My client also owns Lot 22 to the west of Lot 21. The area of concern that we have today is the very top the very top northeast corner of our property. The property is at the intersection of Sebastopol. If Sebastopol has an intersection, and it is farmland. And the very top northeast corner of the property is where the farm buildings are located. So there is a century old house. There are some barns that are used for storage. The property has been in Dwayne's family name, the Dietrich family name, since 1956. When it was purchased by his grandfather, Francis Dietrich, and then they formed the corporation, the family corporation from there, Steeple High, because it's across from Trinity United Church, and that's where the name's derived. Our request is for council to consider an amendment to the draft official plan to include this subject property as a minor rounding out of the Sebastopol hamlet. The proposed, if we can go to the GPS map, next slide. Here we are. The proposed rounding out would include the existing single detached home, which is 100 years old, which is in, again, the top north corner of the property, and a potential for 5 additional residential lots. 2 lots, which would be west of the existing farmhouse along line 29, and 3 lots that would be south of the existing farmhouse, immediately in front of the dairy barn, where you can see the red roof, along Road 107. And the question would be why? Why should you consider this? This 2-acre corner, so that's where all the buildings are, it's just shy of 2 acres. That corner has not been used for active farming since the early 2000s. The dairy barn structure that you can see with the long red roof, that was built by Dwayne's grandparents in 1984 after a barn fire the year before. The silo and the livestock barn immediately south of the silo was built in 1977-78. The dairy quota was sold in the early 2000s, and our client, through Steeple High, diversified to chicken quota, broilers, and cash cropping, and in later years, turkey quota. There is now 2 chicken barns located on Lot 22 in this farm location. The barn on this property has been used for boat and vehicle storage for about 20 years. It basically is in a locked-in corner surrounded by residential properties to the south as you drive in towards Tavistock, 1 residential lot to the west that you can see on the far left of the screen. There's a swimming pool behind it. That house was built in 1965. Trinity United Church isn't shown in this picture, but it's immediately north of the property. And then along line 29, and Trinity North to Trinity Church to the north. This corner, while zoned agriculture, cannot be used for agriculture, given the size of equipment now required and used in modern farming. Taking down the storage dairy barn and the old implement shed would create an odd square piece of land, which would be very difficult to maneuver any kind of farm equipment. Spraying a crop on that corner would be unworkable because the existence of the well to the Century House and also the proximity to the residences along Road 107 and the residents at line 29. Our client is aware that to move forward with this plan, that there would be a number of requirements, such as a full hydrological assessment and private servicing assessment to fulfill this long-term proposal. He has done some legwork. He provided your planning department in August of this year with a report completed by FlowSpec, and that concluded that these proposed lots could provide for traditional water treatment systems, in other words, your traditional septic tanks. In early October, he hired Chris Helmer, who's a senior hydrologist with HCS, to complete a water supply potential assessment, and that report was sent to the county planning office yesterday, as it was just completed last week. That report found that based on a desktop review of 7 wells in close vicinity to the subject lands, that there is sufficient supply of groundwater available for 5 proposed lots. Of course, a fuller study would need to be completed, but this assessment at least addresses those initial concerns, whether there is potential sufficient water. But step 1 in the process is to have council consider to have the subject lands included in the rounding out, so that Mr. Dietrich and Steeple High could move ahead and work on such a plan and make use of these lands other than for boat and trailer storage. We're going to present the video now. It was done by drone on October 5th. Some of you, of course, will be familiar with this property and this corner, but we wanted all council to have an actual visual perspective because, as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. The video does not have any music. It's not like those real estate videos that you're looking at real estate. It's very, very quiet. And as it's going, it's 1 minute 54. And as it's going through, some of it will be obvious what you're looking at. But I do want to point out that in the hamlet of Sebastopol already is farmland located at 3649 Perth Road 107. That is in the hamlet because a small portion of it abuts onto line 29. And the relevance of this is that that is good, viable farmland. And it does seem odd to us that that's included in the settlement area. And we would want you to take that into consideration with our request to have this land included that is not being used for farm. So if we could have the video. So that's zeroing in on the property. You can see United Church on the right and the old dairy barn on the left. And you can see that it's the grass area in front of the farm of the dairy barn is well maintained. It's just grass. It gives you a good idea how would you move equipment where the sort of cedars or evergreens are growing right in front of the dairy barn. Piece of land immediately south of the silo and the dairy barn, that land was conveyed to the county of Oxford about 10 years ago at their request for stormwater maintenance for the county of Oxford. See residences up Road 107 and residences immediately south of the farm. You can see a field in the top corner. That's the field on the right-hand side. That's in the hamlet. And the century-old house is sort of covered by trees, but is right kind of in the middle of the screen now. And there's a close-up. I don't know any farmer in the area that could get a sprayer in there. Maybe you could back it in and pull it out. Thank you. So that is my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to deal with the planning issues. And after Stephanie speaks, then Mr. Dietrich will speak last. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. As mentioned, my name is Stephanie Pratt. I'm with Arcadis Professional Services. We are formerly IBI Group. We have a number of different services within our firm, such as planning, engineering, etc. So some of the information I'm going to be presenting today does cover off in a bit more detail the analysis that our lawyer Kathy just provided, with a bit more of a planning lens and some policy references. So I just included some original slides here, which show some footage from the drone footage, as well as the video. We just wanted to double check everything was working, so it was also included in this slideshow. As mentioned, the existing property is located at the boundary of the settlement area of Sebastopol. You can see here there is some poultry barns located on the western portion of the property, as the owner did change from livestock to poultry a number of years ago, as the family farm has just modified over time. In the northeast corner is where you can see the existing dwelling and accessory buildings, as well as on this map, you can see the existing settlement area boundary. The existing size of that settlement area is about 35 acres, and the size of the existing farm is about 152 acres. Everything is currently designated and zoned for agriculture. So on this map, you can see here that we're proposing an expansion to the settlement area boundary, which is about 2 acres in size. The lot lines that are proposed by the landowner are in line with the existing surrounding lots. And as you can see, there is a bit of an error on the online mapping with the extent of the lot line for the property to the west, which is currently not within the settlement area boundary as well. If this application were to be approved by council today for inclusion within the official plan, future applications for a consent for a surplus farm dwelling, as well as future consent applications for the creation of up to 5 new lots, and a zoning bylaw amendment application would be required. In terms of meeting different policies within the planning perspective, the new PPS does make sure that we need to consider uses such as agricultural, infill and intensification, servicing, and MDS. So I'm going to run through just a brief summary of all those different details. So here, and as Kathy mentioned, the agricultural use is not viable in the long term, given the current pinch point of the existing lot lines in the area, as well as the use without agricultural crop. As it stands today, in alignment with current policy, this property would be suitable as a surplus farm dwelling because the owner owns various farm properties with various dwellings located on them. As shown on this drawing, if this dwelling were to be severed in an application coming forward in the future, it would result in an odd lot fabric between the surplus farm dwelling and the existing dwellings in the surrounding area. Infill and intensification is a large target for the province, and it's an appropriate form of development to move forward with. Under the different policies in the new PPS, as well as the OP policies, we need to look at the underutilized land and directing density and growth into those areas. The settlement area boundary that we're including in this only represents a 6% increase in the existing settlement area that is currently seen here today, and a 12% increase in residential units should all of these lots contain a single detached dwelling and all lots come forward in the future. In terms of the character of the hamlet, I think that this image does do a good job of connecting all the different pieces of this puzzle. The dotted lines on this drawing do show the current boundary of the settlement area, as well as the proposed infill lots and surplus farm dwelling. The connections of these properties with the existing boundaries of the settlement with frontage on Road 107 and line 29 are appropriate. If you also look further to the east, as Kathy mentioned, there is additional lands that are currently located within the settlement area boundary that are available for future use of residential lots, but are currently used for agricultural purposes. We did want to point out that there is a reference within the policy to refer to section 3.6 for villages and hamlets, when in actuality, those policies within the the plan are within section 3.2. So just a minor change we'd like to note for staff before this gets brought forward to MMAH. Last but not least, servicing. The hamlet of Sebastopol currently has municipal servicing as it's located as a continuation of Road 107 from Tavistock. Tavistock is located in Oxford County, and there are policies within the plan that do state any new development needs to be serviced by private or communal servicing such as wells and septic. We have undertaken the required studies at a preliminary level to identify that there is sufficient groundwater available to service wells for up to 5 lots, as well as sufficient information available to support traditional septic systems on this property. With that, we're requesting that council supports this settlement area boundary expansion for the hamlet of Sebastopol, given that it's minor in nature and meets the direction of both provincial and official plan policies to do a settlement area boundary expansion, and that this time for a comprehensive review is the most appropriate time to do so. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. As Kathy had mentioned earlier, my grandfather started this farm originally in 1956. 160-acre farm with 50-cow dairy herd, eventually taken over by my father. Today, our farming operation encompasses 1,000 acres of cash crop land.
Excuse me, could you speak closer to the microphone?
Today, our farming operation encompasses 1,000 acres of cash crop land, as well as a chicken and turkey operation producing 1 million kilograms of production each yearly, operated by myself and my wife and 2 full-time employees. In 2000, we exited the dairy industry. 2 new poultry barns, as you've seen, were built on the farm further up line 29 to meet MDS requirements to the church and residential housing in Sebastopol. The existing dairy barns, as you have seen, have remained empty since then. They can no longer be used for dairy or retrofitted to any type of livestock or poultry, as they do not meet today's MDS requirements. I am one of the strongest advocates for agriculture you will find. Agriculture is the backbone of Perth County. We need a strong agricultural policy, and I think the county has done a reasonably good job creating that policy. Agricultural needs an area where it can thrive and reach its full potential. The corner of line 29 and road 107 is not that area. As the buildings can no longer be used for livestock, their value is essentially zero. It has been suggested to me that the buildings could be removed and the land returned for cropping. The removal of the buildings would allow for the existing farmhouse to be considered a surplus farm dwelling and its creation as a residential lot, leaving approximately 160 feet between the farmhouse and the house directly to the west on line 29, and 180 feet between the farmhouse and the house to the south on road 107. The size of farm machinery today makes it extremely challenging and impractical to operate in an area like this. Is it a good policy to say, yes, you can grow crops in between those houses and across from the church? Yes, you can apply manure in between those houses and across from the church. Yes, you can apply fertilizer and herbicides on those crops in between those houses and across from the church. I was a firefighter with the Shakespeare Fire Department for 18 years, recently retired. I have attended many accidents at the corner of line 29 and road 107. Is it a good policy to say you can plant corn that will grow 10 feet tall along road 107, further restricting the view of oncoming traffic from the south? The agricultural policy says I can. Common sense says to me I can't. The only constant in life is change. This would be a change. It would change low value, unfunctional, agricultural land into high value, needed residential housing. It is a change that positively improves the look and the feel for the hamlet of Sebastopol and its residents. and removes agricultural from a small area that today it simply doesn't belong in. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Um, if council's interested, I did make packets of photos. If you are going to further consider this matter and want to have a view, I would pass those out. I would just leave them with Mr. Duncan and he can pass them along. At this time, if anyone has any questions, Stephanie and I and Dwayne are open to any questions. And I presume that you will also ask your planner to come up as well.
Okay, thank you. Moira, do you wish to make some comments?
Thank you, Warden. We were in consultation with the delegate previously and throughout this official plan process. The matter before you is whether the settlement area boundary expansion should be permitted and considered. We had suggested that a separate official plan amendment be undertaken, as we didn't feel it was something that could be considered as part of this official plan. For the first reason, growth allocation within the official plan was allocated to service settlement areas. The minor rounding out of unserviced settlement areas was considered. We received various applications across the county for the expansion of unserviced settlement areas. However, when we took a regional approach, a regional view of all of the expansion considerations, it was determined that an overall addition of 22 hectares was being proposed and was being requested to be added to unserviced settlement areas. At that time, when we were considering where areas should grow and based on provincial policy that guides growth to settlement areas, we determined that it wasn't appropriate to consider expansions to unserviced settlement areas at this time. Particularly related to the delegation in front of you, the servicing would be, or the servicing of Sebastopol is provided by Oxford County, and there's clear policies within their official plan that speak to servicing not being further extended to provide services to Sebastopol. Because of this policy, the servicing of this area is in the hands of Oxford County Council, and we feel that there are some loose ends that still need to be tied up before this land is brought into the settlement area boundary. And for those reasons, we were unable to consider it an expansion as part of this official plan.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? Council McDermott?
Yeah, even though if Oxford didn't allow the hookup, they still have shown that they can put everybody on private wells, right?
Correct. There's still the direction when we were, consulting with the province, and we did reach out to Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing when we were considering these expansions to unserviced settlement areas. And it was deemed that that expansion was not consistent with the approach of the provincial policy statement at the time, and now within the provincial planning statement. It doesn't encourage partial servicing, and the intent would be that Sebastopol eventually is a fully serviced municipality, so it's not something that we would encourage the expansion of villages at this time, would rather see those be located in service settlement areas.
And to do an official plan amendment, that would be a lot more expensive than if we just put that in our official plan now, would not.
There would be a cost to the applicant, for the official plan amendment. The timing would still be something to consider with the minister's approval. The official plan may not be implemented for another 2 years, so that it's something to consider.
Okay, other questions from members of council? No, okay, thank you. Okay, and then we have Dave Hannum, a planner from Zelenka Primo Limited in regards to Science Hill Country Club. Oh, I'm sorry, you're joining online. Good morning.
Good morning, Warden, members of council. Perhaps I could just get a thumbs up that I'm coming in clear and
Yes, you're coming in. We can hear you, and the floor is yours to proceed.
wonderful. So my name's Dave Hannam. I'm a partner and registered professional planner with Selinka Priamo Limited. We're a land-based planning consultancy based in London and Toronto. I live in Stratford myself. We are the planning consultants for the Southside Group, who are the owners of the property commonly referred to as the Science Hill Country Club in the township of Perth South. I'm sure you're all familiar with that property. Apologies that I couldn't attend in person today. I did provide some written comments on behalf of our client yesterday, understanding that it was short notice ahead of today's meeting. But I am hopeful that you have all had an opportunity to review them, even at a cursory level. I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk through these comments. I don't have the benefit of any visual aids for my delegation, but there are several figures of the subject lands in my letter. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk through these comments. So for those that don't know, the northerly portion of the property in question is currently occupied by the Science Hill Country Club, which includes the 18-hole golf course, the clubhouse, the accessory structures, and the trailer park. These lands are designated recreation in the current and draft OP. The southerly portion of the property is predominantly vacant. There is a single-family dwelling and accessory structure for storage for the golf course. It's the northerly half of the southerly parcel that's the main focus of my comments. In the current draft OP, these lands are designated agriculture. We wish to respectfully request that these lands be redesignated through this draft OP to recreation to be consistent with the designation applied to the abutting golf course and the existing trailer park. For information, back in November of 23, Southside submitted a pre-con request on the subject lands, which generally comprised a phased expansion of the existing trailer park use to the adjacent, currently underutilized portions of the property, which I've referred to earlier as the sort of the northerly front section of the southerly parcel. This would add approximately 155 trailer sites to the property. Through our initial preliminary servicing options prepared for the expansion, the existing on-site communal well and septic systems, was confirmed that the servicing arrangements could be accommodated without any undue impacts on hazard lands or environmental features. And the current draft natural heritage mapping confirms that there are no heritage features on the proposed expansion lands. I think it's really important to note here that these expansion lands, or the lands that are earmarked for expansions, they were originally designed for a trailer park use. They were laid out for trailer parks and the intended use, and have remained generally cleared. Since that time, there's been no active farming taking place on these areas for many years. They've just been the grass has been kept and mowed, etc. There are some rows of trees that formed effectively the actual trailer sections themselves. So there would be no net loss of active agricultural use as a result of this request. And these lands are not constrained by hazard or natural environment features. It's also Southside's intention in the future to seek year-round occupation of the trailer park. It's our opinion that permitting year-round occupation or the consideration of such, or an expansion beyond the current May to October timeline, would provide alternative form to conventional housing, contributing to the housing affordability and diversity of housing types within the county, and also add to the diversity in housing typology, and help the county meet that affordable housing, or contribute to help to meet that housing supply shortfall. So as a result of our involvement in the OP review process, we have two respectful requests of County Council. The first is a policy interpretation that we would like from staff, and today, if possible, is there's a draft policy. It's 3.5.4.42, and it states that campgrounds and trailer parks, golf courses that legally existed in the agricultural designation on the date of adoption of this plan shall be permitted according to the implementing zoning bylaw. So it's a little unclear to us whether the currently underutilized lands which are earmarked for expansion phases for the future trailer park would be considered an existing use, and we'd like clarification on that matter, please. And then the second request of council would be to direct staff to firstly possibly look to explore to modify policy 3.9.33, which speaks to prohibiting occupation of trailer parks on a year-round basis, by perhaps acknowledging that maybe it may be acceptable where site conditions are suitable for the provision of appropriate sewage and water services. And importantly, that there's a modification to the mapping of the subject lands, so that the proposed designation of that southerly portion, or at least at a minimum, the northerly half of that southerly portion of the golf course of the country club lands would be redesignated from agriculture to recreation to better reflect and be consistent with the existing designation of golf course and trailer park. It's our opinion that adhering to these requests would assist. There's a general acknowledgement that it would assist with the future development approval process. It wouldn't remove the need for detailed planning applications such as rezoning applications, where staff and the public and elected officials would have the opportunity afforded it to review the proposal in detail. So thank you for the consideration of my comments and the opportunity to speak this morning.
Okay, thank you. We're going to have our senior planner, Moira, make some comments now.
Thank you, Warden. Regarding this property, we did receive the letter from the applicant, or excuse me, delegate yesterday. A pre-con meeting was held for the application where the delegate was provided the required studies that were necessary to deem this application complete and kind of alleviate any concerns that staff had. The first concern that allowed us to maybe reconsider inclusion of this request in the official plan is that the area is identified as a source water protection area for the county. There is also the need to provide a Ministry of Environment letter that supports the private servicing of this additional lands. There was concerns from the Conservation Authority as a portion of the lands requested are within the floodplain. This is considered not someplace that could be habitable, especially on the long term, if that was something that the applicant, the delegate is requesting. The area or a portion of the area is also identified as having aggregate resources. We'd be looking for an aggregate resource study to be undertaken to confirm that the use of the land would not jeopardize the aggregates that are located underneath the soil there. The property is also, as mentioned by the delegate, currently designated agricultural as per the new provincial policy statement or provincial planning statement, excuse me. There's a requirement to maintain a geographically continuous agricultural system, as well as the requirement to undertake an agricultural impact assessment for any lands that wouldn't be of agricultural use. We would be looking for an agricultural impact assessment to determine that the location of trailers in what previously or currently is an agricultural area won't have impacts to the longevity of the agricultural system, nor have impacts to MDS compliance. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Trunkowski?
Thanks, Warden Eggets, through you. The applicant or the delegate has indicated the applicant would like to convert seasonal use into permanent use for housing. So my question to our staff is, wouldn't that have consequences or implications with the local building officials to ensure compliance with building codes, in addition to the list of concerns mentioned by the planner previously?
Through yourself, Warden, there would be concerns or the need to further look into what the permanent structures would look like. There would be the need for building permits, and the overall intent of the official plan is to direct growth to areas where services can be provided for residents. This area is, again, located in the agricultural system, and we would need to consider whether that is in line with the intentions of the provincial policy statement and our official plan on where we're directing growth to.
Thank you.
Councillor McDermott?
This is not directed to you, that's directed to the follow-up there. So basically, right now, you're renting space out to somebody for a limited time period, and you would like to change that to, are you going to be renting them space, even though it'll be, it won't be a short term, it'll be like a long-term rental? That's what you're looking to do? Am I understanding that right?
That's directed to me. That question? Yes, currently the zoning bylaw restricts occupation on a basis of May till October. So we're looking at an option where we could effectively have either existing owners of the sites or new owners occupy it beyond that time frame.
But you would still own the land. They would be just
Yes,
basically
yeah,
renting.
we're not looking at any sort of land conveyance or severance, etc., that sort of thing. So it would be available on a leased or rented basis. It wouldn't be an owned owner occupier.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Katzenberg?
Can I just check my assumptions here? When we speak of trailers and trailer park, do we not mean that these are still vehicles that have wheels and therefore may not be subject to building code provisions? I don't know, perhaps the proponent can speak to that.
Can you speak to that to Mr. Hannum?
Yes, in some instances, whilst the Ontario Building Code is an absolute document, we have had instances where municipalities have taken the approach that trailers do not constitute a building under the Ontario Building Code and therefore are not subject to those requirements. So it's an interpretation on a municipal by municipal basis. And just so that I can be clear, we're not looking to try and circumnavigate any necessary studies or permits or approvals here. We're just looking to create some additional flexibility in the land use planning permissions. We certainly, I don't know if you're familiar with Southside Group, but they are a very well-known and reputable developer. We're not looking to effectively create conveyable parcels here to create a new residential community. We're just looking to try and leverage the existing recreational facilities to improve currently underutilized lands. A redesignation in this instance would help with that flexibility. We understand that there are some heavy lifting that needs to be done with regards to the technical studies. Those are underway. We are in constant communication with the Conservation Authority. As I said, our preliminary design means that indicates that the proposed development is serviceable and would not impact source water protection or conservation area lands as well. So we're just looking for some improved flexibility with regards to the mapping in this instance.
Okay. Any other questions from members of council? No? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to make a presentation? Okay, if you could come up to the microphone and give your name and address, please.
Good morning. My name is Mary Ann Bradley.
Turn the microphone on, please.
Talk.
There we go.
Is that better? Good morning. My name's Mary Ann Brabender from South Perth. I'm not registered yet. I'd like to thank you for giving me a chance to speak. Our family's been farming in South Perth for over 60 years. Our township is predominantly cash crop with livestock sprinkled throughout. In the last years, we, along with our neighbors, have watched in despair as many of the structurally sound and often heritage barns and outbuildings have been destroyed and bulldozed from our neighborhoods in order to satisfy the requirements of the surplus farm resident severances. A lot of these buildings were often empty or used as equipment storage, but they added a lot to the character of our agricultural neighborhood. They've now been erased. So once a surplus severance has been completed, it leaves the new owners of the lot in a position to apply to build and finance a usually costly anymore new outbuilding within the confines of that new lot. This doesn't seem to make a lot of practical or common sense to remove existing structurally sound buildings only to have them be rebuilt in a different form and oftentimes never rebuilt. So the new official plan speaks to preserving the agricultural culture, the heritage of our county. And the slide presentation had a charming picture of the red barn buildings and an old concrete silo. However, the surplus farm residence requirements currently in place are forcing those exact charming old buildings to be removed forever from our areas in order to get approval. Most of you in farming will know that any possible inappropriate use of these farm buildings, if they were to be severed as a cluster with the house, any misuse is well covered and controlled by nutrient management regulations, minimum distance regulations, and the normal farm practice board. So I think it is very important that, and I'm hoping that the official plan will consider that the change to soften up or ease the restrictions on these buildings being removed, that they may reconsider that as not as dangerous to our communities as they might have been in the 70s. Things have changed, and the drafting of this new official plan should consider whether those buildings have to be destroyed. We're talking about the agricultural heritage. It needs to be protected for the future. And it's very likely that at the rate these barns have disappeared, especially in our neighborhood, I'm not sure what happens in other neighborhoods, but there's just so many of them that are gone and there's nothing there. It's just an empty hole. It'll never be farmed on those spots. So I'm just hoping to make some impact that this may be a consideration. And thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. Moira, would you like to make comments?
Through you, Warden, it is typical practice within the Perth County Planning Department that if a barn is within the farm cluster on a property, when considering a surplus farm dwelling severance, that the barn is encouraged to be maintained. Now, a change of use is required when that barn is maintained on the severed property, as planning wants to ensure that there's not going to be livestock ever kept in that barn that's on the residential property. And that is the typical approach that planning currently takes today.
Okay, any questions from council? Council McDermott?
So then what you're saying is that it can stay as long as it's close to the cluster.
Correct.
If it's is there any kind of distance now that we're talking about if it's away from the cluster? And secondly, they just have to get it, the use changed and they could keep it, right?
Correct. If it's in close proximity to the cluster, it can be kept as long as they apply for that change of use permit. When it comes to what is considered close to the cluster, there isn't an exact number of what that looks like. And planning staff will use their discretion when looking at applications to determine what close to the cluster looks like. Now there's different requirements for sizes of surplus dwellings, whether it's 1 hectare, 3 hectares. But it really is dependent on the application and what each council considers as in close proximity.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Okay, if you come up to the microphone, please give us your name and your address. And turn the microphone on. Good.
My name is Karen Wiley, and I am the agricultural representative for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business and the Perth County representative as well. Now, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business represents the views of over 97,000 small and medium-sized businesses in all economic sectors across Canada, with 38,000 members right here in Ontario. So on behalf of our agribusiness members in Perth County, they had flagged concerns with our team regarding the county's draft official plan. Our members are worried that the proposed rezoning will generate additional costs for farmers, disrupt crop plans, and devalue existing land that is currently zoned for agriculture. Farmers are concerned that land being identified as natural environment is inaccurate and will lead to unnecessary environmental impact studies when land use, for example, new farm-related buildings, changes. Our members are telling us that areas such as border boundaries required for organic certification, trees planted along laneways, trees planted as part of a plantation for the purpose of harvesting are just some of the examples of inaccurate identification. While they have attended consultations, they are very worried their concerns are not being heard. We recommend that the county consult directly with the local agricultural business community to fully understand and take into account their concerns with the draft official plan. Now, I know he had mentioned that farmers would be here if it was a priority. I think one of the other concerns that I have come across meeting with many farmers for the past many months on this topic is they are unaware. So we are pushing for basically a delay, slow down, consult more farmers, push this off until they have more time to understand the details on it.
Okay, thank you. Moira, do you have a response?
Through you, Warden. The few topics that I just wanted to touch on that were briefly spoken about by the delegate regarding, I believe ARUs was brought up. The permission of additional residential units on agricultural lands is something that's permitted at the provincial level. Again, with the provincial planning statement being released on the 20th, that states that the planning for the Ontario, for any land in Ontario, needs to be in compliance with the PPS. So regardless if the official plan did not permit additional residential units on agricultural lands, it is still something that could be permitted as the provincial policy takes precedent in that case. Regarding the inclusion of windbreaks, I just wanted to clarify that windbreaks were not included in the natural environment designation study. They were specifically excluded, and there was a certain criteria that was used in the study to determine what was considered a windbreak and what was not. And then finally, there was I was recently informed that there was actually multiple mailouts that had gone out to members. So I had previously mentioned there was a mail out done to 23,000 property owners, properties within the county. There was actually a previous mail out done in 2018 by the previous planner to initiate, when the project was initiated, as well as notices through our project website. We also completed notices in the paper, and then also did notices again for when the natural heritage study was undertaken.
Okay, any questions from members of council? Councillor Jankowski.
Thanks, Warden. Through you, it gets more of a comment. As far as farmers being unaware, as the warden pointed out, or in the preamble, or perhaps it was more in the preamble, this process has been ongoing since 2018. And I was in attendance when this process started in June 2018. And I made, even though I was a local councillor at the time and not county councillor, my point is I notified my constituents who are farmers, as am I, and I couldn't get them interested enough. And I said, you got to come to this meeting. Well, we're busy. I said, no, you really should go. And they did listen. They did go. They did listen. But short of dragging them by the collar into the building, that's what I had to do to get people interested in this process. And as our staff has pointed out, we've gone to great lengths to inform people, make them aware. So at this point, I don't know what else we can do to make people more aware and get them more involved in the process. And I was quite annoyed when the blue flyers went out in the winter saying that the county was going to expropriate property. That is not happening. It's not the case. It was a lot of fear mongering, and it caused more consternation and problems than it did to proper communication on the actual issues at hand. So this, as the warden pointed out, or as it's pointed out in discussion, this is an ongoing document. It's a living document. It will be reviewed again in 5 years. This conversation is not over. It will continue long into the future. And the other thing to consider is 20, 30 years when these properties change hands, who will be the stewards of those properties? And will they have the same mindset of maintaining their property in good order as the current landowners do now? I just leave that as an open question. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions from council? No, okay, thank you. Anyone else who would like to make a presentation? No, okay. So at this time, we have little notes here. Do we have any other business? No announcements, and we're going to adjourn. The planning public meeting is going to be adjourned at 11:19 a.m. I need a. Sorry? Okay, I will allow because we don't have our motion yet, so please come up to the mic. Oh, sorry, because there's a button on. There we go. Good. Go ahead.
Oh, hello, Rhonda. Rhonda and I are next door neighbors, by the way, so she knows what I do, and I thank you for your help with the tires. I am the local scrap dealer, I guess, because my husband is no longer alive. I'm trying to get the property into my name. We have a yard in Godrich and we have a yard in Stephenville. I wear a pin on my shoulder from Lisa Thompson for cleaning up the tornado in Godrich. We've cleaned up a lot of tornadoes in Perth County over 60 years. I am trying to run a family business and go forward because all the farmers in this area are trying to sell their farms. And when you sell a farm, you need a compliance approval in order to get a mortgage. So we do a lot of farm cleanups and help them get cleaned up so they can get a mortgage and sell their property. So in 2018, we were told all the scrap yards in Ontario would be gone at the planning meeting in Melbourne. And it's 2024. I'm still here, but Elmer isn't. But it's a family business and we're still trying to go forward. We have many partners, the Ministry of Environment, the tire people. We do depolluting of cars, and we are only zoned as A40. And when I checked last week, I thought I had cleared it with the girl that I come up to see here in Mitchell. And it was still on there, but I don't see it on there now. So it has to be on there in order for me to get the licenses in my name and go forward. So I don't know if there's anything you can do to help me. But, you know, we are a very, very essential service. Because if you have scrap on your property or in your bush, which a lot of people used to throw it in the bush in the 60s to the 80s, it has to be cleaned up in order to sell your farm. So I don't know if there's anything you can do to help me, but I would like to be able to be considered an essential service and put on the map as an essential service. I thank you for your time.
Okay, just for the record, could you state your name and your address for everyone here?
It's line 42, 45, 46, Perth East.
And your first name and... Oh, I know who you are, but everybody else needs to know that.
My name is Berna Joyce, and the company I am trying to get into our name is Secondary Resources Perth Limited and Joyce Motor Sales, which isn't a limited company. But I need to have everybody understand what the pressures of the scrap yards are going through. The tire thing, we are licensed and with the RPRA, I think it is. And we have to have a sign on our wall that says, we must take 10 tires off anybody with rims in or without rims in at no charge. Now, I thank Rhonda for her help, because when Sydney was down with the load of scrap, I told him why there was a pile of tires there. And I said, we don't have the help in order to take the rims out. So we have to try and get the rims out before we take the tires away. And I said, and you know, payroll's pretty strong. We have 17 guys working for us. And last week we got 7 tractor trailer loads, 53 tractor trailer loads out of scrap metal between here and Perth County. So we're not just a tiny little company, and we are essential. We started 60 years ago And it's been an interesting way of life, but it's not a nice, pretty thing like flower gardens and so maybe you don't think it's good to have scrap, but we can, we've been tooled up. We can have a combine come in and cut it up in 3 hours with a shear. And we make slabs, which are a foot by 3 feet, and take them, they go to the steel mill and wet beat. Yeah, so anyway, that's my story. I don't know if you can do me any help, but can you check and make sure that I haven't been left off the A40 again?
Okay,
Because I need that to be there in order to have anything go forward with the property.
okay, thank you. I'll have Moira. Oh, a question from Councillor McDermott.
So just so I understand, you want to retain the, what your zoning is, or you want a different type zoning?
I think we should be zoned different myself in order to be able to sometimes when the Ministry of Environment comes in, they look at this A40 and they'll say, you're not zoned right.
Okay, so you want a different zoning?
I think it would be good, yeah.
Oh, okay, no, I just wanted to make sure that that's what we were talking about. No, thank you.
So I'm definitely, there's a lot of farm cleanups happening right now. There's a lot of farmers are giving up. And then they'll phone and want a lugger bin or roll-off bin, and they clean up their scraps so they can get a mortgage. And they need to do it in a hurry because the guy that was going to buy the farm will wait until 2 or 3 months down the road. He wants it now because of the time line with the crops. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll let Moira come up and talk about what zoning you are, and then maybe she can talk to you after as well.
Will do. So we were able to meet with a delegate back in July regarding her subject matter and her property. The property concern was regarding her zoning on the subject property, whereas the official plan designation is not changing. Her official plan designation was previously agriculture, and her official plan designation in the new proposed official plan is agriculture. The zoning is a matter that we informed would be undertaken following approval of the official plan by council. That's just one next step that we need to look at is the zoning bylaw. Currently, the zoning bylaw permits a site-specific agricultural use. That is what A40 means. There's a specific permission for a scrapyard on the property. Regarding the transfer of ownership, it's not something that is a official plan matter, is maybe something that we need to involve clerks in or someone else at the lower level. And we have also provided contact information for the local planner as we feel that potentially a zoning bylaw amendment might be required. Now, I think it also could just be a communication on the Ministry of Environment's part, because there is already this site-specific permission that permits scrap yards in the zoning bylaw as it exists today.
Okay, any questions from members of council? No, okay, are you clear on what you need to do? Or we can have Moira sit down with you and explain it a bit further. It's in the zoning, it's not in the actual official plan, and the zoning's gonna come later, once we get the official plan adopted and the government gives us the okay, then we're gonna change the zoning, and that's when yours can be changed from what it is now to what you want it to be. Okay? Good? Perfect. Okay. Anyone else like to speak? Nope. Okay, then we are going to close our public meeting so that the Yep, I'm on the right page, I think. That the planning public meeting be adjourned at approximately 11:30 a.m. I need a mover and a seconder. Deputy Warden Kellum, Council McDermott, all in favor? Carried. Now we have two motions to deal with for our public meeting. We're going to do that, then we're going to have a break because we're at 11:30. So the first official plan amendment was 2:30, and that was Sherco Holdings. And the motion that we have, oh, sorry, I'm ahead of myself, Tyler. I need to go back into regular council, and we're going to reconvene at approximately 11:31 a.m. Councillor Smith and Councillor McDermott, all in favor? Carried. Okay, now we can go to the motions. Okay, so the first one is for Amendment 230, and that was Sherco Holdings. And the motion that I have is that council receives the Perth County Official Plan Amendment 230 Sherco Holding Report, and that council approves the official plan amendment number 230 to the County of Perth official plan submitted by MHBC Planning on behalf of Sherco Holdings for lands described as Lot 9, Part Lot 8, Concession 3, Ellis Ward, 4350, line 36, and 4343, line 39 in the township of Perth East. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor McDermott. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and then the official plan one. We have a motion that council receives the draft County of Perth official plan 2024 for adoption report, that council adopts the proposed draft 2024 official plan, and that that council directs staff to forward the proposed draft official plan and all required supporting documentation to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MMAH, for approval, and that council directs staff to work with MMAH to approve the proposed draft official plan, including incorporating any modifications deemed necessary by the ministry. Am I moving things around?
This one's been, you dealt with this. This has been moved on.
Oh, I missed something. So I did. Been a tough morning.
So.
Sorry, I am ahead of myself. Yes. Yes. So with your permission, we can continue, or you want to go, or you want to backtrack? We can backtrack after?
So then we would go to Moyer's report first, 8.2.2.
Okay, I guess what I was trying to do was, there's all these people here. I was trying to do it when they were here and then take a break so that they could leave if they wished. I guess that was my thinking to do this, and I apologize that I have jumped ahead or moved ahead within the, we do it different in Perth East. We have our public meetings, we do our motions, and then we go on to the next. And that's where I guess I'm still in the wrong mode here of which medium I'm at, but if you wish to go by what's here, we can do that. And what's everyone wish? Sorry, my apologies, I'm jumping ahead.
I think we carry on. We basically just, I guess the warden mentioned to help with the public. We're just juggling the agenda a little bit. We did 8.2.1. We're on 8.2.3.
Correct.
Correct. And then after the break, we'll go back to our agenda, 8.1.1, and carry on. That's the way I understand we should do it.
I appreciate the interest in that approach, and generally I would say that's efficient, but I have 3 pages of questions and comments to make, so we're going to be here for a while.
Okay, then we'll take a break and we'll go back. Or jumping ahead, like I said, I'm used to my other municipality where I run the meetings, and that's how we do. So we're going to go back to 8.1.1, and that's a human resource policy update. We have Crystal with us this morning, so she's going to present the report to us. So Crystal, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Warden and members of County Council. The report before you outlines changes to policies in Section 2 of the HR Policy and Procedure Manual. There are 10 policies within this section, 9 of which are in the report before you. And these policies, there's one remaining policy that is being reviewed with the Finance Division. Of these 9 policies, most required minor changes to reflect current legislation, mirror current practices, and outline key roles and responsibilities to make it clearer for our staff. All policies were updated to the accessible template that complies with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. And the changes made to the policies in this section are housekeeping in nature with no financial implications. And we ask that Council approve the policies as written before you, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we do have a motion that council receives the Human Resource Policy Update Report, Section 2, and that council approves the Human Resource Policy Update Report, Section 2. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor McDermott. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I already did the Sherco Holdings, Jeff. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say. We do it, that did go through, so we're going to jump then to the next one. Am I on the wrong one? No. Okay. We're going to do the Ontario Regulation 299-/19 additional residential units, and Moira is going to do that.
Thank you, Warden, members of council. The report you have before you today is regarding Ontario Regulation 29919 regarding additional residential units. There is a comment period that ends October 23rd, and in order to get comments provided to the province on behalf of the county, we needed to bring your attention to this matter today. So the proposed changes under the More Homes Built Faster Act proposes to accelerate the implementation of additional residential framework. So these changes previously allowed for, as of right, establishment of 3 residential units per lot. The changes proposed to this act now include, sorry, I lost my spot here. Excuse me. So they now permit or propose to include or increase the maximum lot coverage permitted for lots with additional residential units. The legislation also proposes to override requirements relating to angular planes and looks to reduce, or I guess override, the minimum lot sizes and floor space index, as well as restricting building distance separation requirements. We were able to consult with the local building officials regarding this matter to understand their concerns, as they are the frontline or frontline staff who deal with additional residential units on a daily basis. The key concerns that they had indicated regarding the building separation. The building separation that's proposed is a maximum of 4 meters. And this maximum that's proposed by the province, we believe will have challenges to create and design and renovate existing buildings that aren't 4 meters away from a property. It'll be harder to grade these lots. There will be challenges with lot drainage, and the closer the building is to the principal dwelling, we believe there'll be challenges and limitations with building code regarding glass openings, as well as egress and ingress and natural light, sight lines, and safety exits. The chief building official actually provided us with some specific building code references that you'll see in your report that they believe these proposed changes by the province will not be in compliance with and will be a challenge for both planning staff and building staff to approve additional residential units. We believe that the intention to change these provisions will not encourage the development of additional residential units, particularly related to the renovation of, say, existing garages on a property. If they're not located that 4 meters away from the principal dwelling, they would not be permitted to have an additional residential unit in them. It's not a matter that could be subject to a zoning bylaw amendment or a minor variance amendment, because it is provincially legislated. That would be final decision, and the distance is of concern to us. We believe that we should be commenting on this matter to let the province know of the existing dwellings and existing potential garages that we do have in the county that could host additional residential units, and the limitations that this policy would potentially bring on helping the county create additional units and provide additional housing through this method. Short and sweet.
Great. Okay, any questions? Counselor Jankowski?
Thanks, Warden Agats, through you. I guess my question to you, Moira, is there any indication as to where this 4 meters, what the origin or the theory is behind the 4 meters? Is there a magic formula, or how did the ministry come up with this number?
Through the warden, I'm not clear on where the 4 meters comes from. My understanding and interpretation and reviewing the ERO posting is that the intent is for if additional dwelling unit is located 4 meters from a building, then there's potential for laneway housing to be located in the back portion of said property, or that wouldn't necessarily apply on a property basis, but should the rear half of a property be severed off, then the location of additional residential units wouldn't prohibit that from occurring in the future. So my interpretation is it's applicable more on an urban, quite dense area. It is not so applicable on the county's case.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Seeing no questions, and we have a motion that council receives Ontario Regulation 299/19 additional residential units report, and that council directs planning staff to submit comments to the ERO before October 23rd, 2024. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg, second by Councillor Wilhelm. All those in favor? Carried. Don't move, because the next one is yours too, I believe, the new official plan. I'm on the right one now? Yep. Okay, go ahead.
I believe that I shared with you the report, and the presentation that was presented before you at the statutory public meeting covers the matters that are before council today, including the comments that needed to be addressed between the previous iteration of the official plan and the one that's before you. You'll also see in your application package, report package, there is a PPS 2024 consistency chart where you'll be able to refer to where sections of our official plan align or are consistent with the new to be adopted provincial planning statement. There's also a summary of the different phases that were undertaken to bring the final version of the official plan before you today. And I'm happy to answer any final questions or comments that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the report? Councillor Kassenberg?
I feel somewhat awkward with the number of questions that I have, and I apologize for them, but I think some of them are reasonably relevant to the consideration of whether council should adopt today this plan. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask a few, but certainly if colleagues want to interject, I'd be happy to be given a breather from time to time, if that's all right. Section 2.3C indicates the county will track the development of residential, employment, and commercial lands through regular assessment of planning approvals, subdivisions, condominiums, site plans, and building permits, including greenfield development, redevelopment, and infill developments, and report on land consumption, density, and intensification every 5 years. Do we understand the burden that this will place on local municipalities for this task? And who is going to pay for that?
The county, sorry, through the warden, the county is required to track this information under the new PPS 2024. The county is already in discussions on how this information can be tracked. The regular assessment of planning approvals is the typical application process that staff goes through on an annual basis. It would include any applications from pre-consultation to approval. And we already have systems in place that determine how many applications we receive per year. It's just determining, or I guess ensuring that the tracking of these developments is done so in a efficient manner and is done so consistently across our member municipalities.
Okay, just pointing out that the implication that building permits are being tracked means certainly that the local municipalities or lower tier municipalities have some obligation as well in this, and that there will be a cost to ratepayers for the provision of that service, whether through fees or through taxes. Okay, let's continue with that item 2.3C. What are the consequences should future councils see that we're actually off track against our development targets, some of which relate to affordable housing in later sections of the plan? So will future councils ever be left with a sort of thought bubble, if you will? Okay, we're not meeting the goals, but oh well, what are we supposed to do about it?
So when we refer to, tracking this information, and it speaks to every 5 years, every 5 years land consumption, every 5 years, the official plan is reviewed. At this time, population targets and density targets will also be assessed. And it's at this time that any changes, so say we're not meeting targets, that is when, potential changes to the official plan might occur to say, okay, well, how these policies weren't, working, or for whatever reason, they weren't able to achieve this target. What are some other actions that we can undertake to ensure that over the next 5 years, we are on track to meeting that target?
So if I understand you properly, then the 5-year review of the official plan is essentially going to consider this information.
Correct.
Is that what you're getting at? Okay, thank you. Let's turn to section 2.3E. This carefully appears to frame a duty of the local municipalities in some words here. So let's read them. Local municipalities are responsible for the infrastructure and public service facilities required to meet a minimum of 15 years of anticipated growth, including but not limited to water, wastewater, stormwater, power, active and vehicle transportation facilities, and waste management. Local municipalities will measure and report annually to the county on their capacity to accommodate the anticipated growth. It is the intention of this policy to require proactive planning for infrastructure and public service facilities that are appropriate, justified, efficient, and financially sustainable to the local municipality and county over the long term. Can you comment on whether this plan can enforce an obligation on a local municipality to the ends that are proposed? And what are the remediations available to the county should that 15-year minimum service and infrastructure level not be achieved?
Through the warden, the official plan, correct, cannot obligate municipalities to do that. We can definitely look at softening that wording. Now, the PPS does strongly encourage municipalities to plan for infrastructure and public services for a minimum of 15 years. The consideration for local municipalities to report annually is something that is more or less already done and assessed whenever applications are considered by planning staff. The ability to service that property or development is considered, and the allocation of stormwater is something that is looked into, or the allocation of these services. With the permissions of the PPS that allow for private settlement area expansions at any time, regardless of, not needing a comprehensive review. As part of that consideration, one of the tests is whether there's adequate servicing. So there will need to be a assessment, whether it's done at the local level or the county level, on what the level of allocation is, because that will impact the ability to respond appropriately and evaluate the tests of the PPS appropriately when considering those applications. So that's where that policy comes from.
Thank you. Let's turn to section F of the same, 2.3. It's fairly directive as well. It says the local municipalities will prepare master infrastructure servicing plans for a 25-year planning horizon. While this is seemingly a good idea, a practical idea, what are the consequences to the local municipalities for failing to do this?
The statement before you, F, is directly from the provincial policy statement. So in order to be consistent with the provincial policy statement, F was included. The determination of when local municipalities prepare master servicing plans will be done at a local level, but at a county-wide level, it is strongly encouraged, as the county is the entity enabling the provincial policy statement.
Okay, thank you. Section 4.1 references complete communities, and there are many other references to that term in the document. This does seem worthy of a definition. So when I went looking for a definition, there wasn't one that I saw in the glossary of terms, but I did find something in section 2.3.2 where the term appears to be defined in the following words. Complete communities are envisioned to be vibrant, healthy, and safe, where reliance on the private automobile is reduced and active modes of transportation are encouraged. Section 2.4 suggests that we intend to get complete communities in strategic growth areas and references Schedule B of the plan. Yet if you look at Schedule B of the plan, what you see is a series of maps of urban serviced and villages and hamlets, and to my review does not see anything explicitly about which of them are strategic growth areas. So what I'd like to know then is this: where are our strategic growth areas? Are Brunner and Dublin, for example, for which there are maps in Schedule B, strategic growth areas?
The strategic growth areas are identified correct within certain maps of Schedule B, in alignment with the definition of strategic growth areas within the provincial policy statement. They are within the county's fully serviced settlement areas, and we intended to clarify that in the first sentence of section 2.4, where the strategic growth areas are identified as the emerging and existing downtown cores of our fully serviced settlement areas in alignment with the PPS.
I'm not convinced, and perhaps it's just the way I look at the maps, because the references to Schedule B, the maps are a large essential collection of maps from across the county, including many villages and hamlets. Again, I'm not convinced that there's words on any of them that say this is the strategic growth area for this map. So I do have a concern that the maps are not covering the intent here. Maybe I'm missing something. Look at the word, and any colleagues want to jump in?
Councillor McKenzie?
Well, I think, and we've talked about it several times, your growth areas and the provinces said that they want to encourage growth in the serviced areas. So you've got Listowel, you've got Mitchell, you've got Milverton, Shakespeare. Those are your designated areas. Certainly Dublin is limited, Cromarty, Staffa, they're limited. They're not what I would call a growth area.
If I may speak to that, if you refer to the Schedule Bs of our service settlement areas, there is the brown and white outline, and it specifically identifies our strategic growth areas on Schedule B. So it'd be Schedule B, Milverton, Atwood, Shakespeare, Listowel, Mitchell.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Maybe I need to have my glasses fixed. I don't know. All right, let's turn to the residential themes, some of the residential themes, if you don't mind, in the plan. In section 2.3.3, subsection A, what appears a mandate is that 15% of all new residential builds annually shall be through intensification. And my question is, how do we actually accomplish that, practically speaking?
We are, as a county, looking to accomplish that through the redevelopment of underutilized and vacant lots. So for example, the municipality of West Perth, as well as North Perth, have community improvement plans that speak to local member municipalities identifying surplus lands for the purpose of attainable housing or affordable housing. So that in and of itself is achieving or helping to achieve this minimum target that 15% of all new residential units are through intensification. And intensification in and of itself can be as small as an additional residential unit being added to a single detached dwelling up to the complete redevelopment of a brownfield site. So how we're doing that would be, every 5 years, we're looking to target this type of development. We're looking to encourage this type of intensification when development applications come across our desks. And then if, the implementation of our lower tiers and their actions through, community improvement plans or other initiatives aren't enough to incentivize or encourage this type of development, then in 5 years, we would take another look at whether that standard and target is appropriate.
And yet the specific statement does say annually. So we're waiting for 5 years, 5 potentially lost years if nothing happens on that front, and only evaluating at year 5. Is that right?
It could be undertaken at 5 years, or it could be something that's undertaken annually through the annual report to council. It's something that would be shown similar to what I was speaking about, the servicing allocations. When we consider applications, we consider that servicing allocations. When we consider applications, we can consider this intensification. And when council's provided their annual review of how many applications planning has seen for development, this is a summary statement of how many or what percentage of the applications were done through intensification versus how much was done through, I would say, like green field development is what I would call it.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Let's look at 2.3.1b, if we might. We find a mandate there as follows: where a development application proposing residential uses within a service settlement area is submitted for a site containing 2 hectares or more of developable lands, the county will require, wherever appropriate, a minimum of 30% of the new residential dwelling units to be planned in forms other than single detached and semi-detached dwellings. 2 hectares, that's 4 acres for our reference, for some of us who are older. Is that size the only one that we should be worrying about for development proposal? So do we put no restrictions on more dense forms and smaller parcels other than our 15 units per hectare minimum? Or should we say, hey, if you have an acre and you're thinking about doing single family homes, you might not get too far here?
Through the warden, I believe that there's other policies that speak to the intensification of single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and townhouses through additional dwelling units that would cover the smaller portion of development. The concern that planning had when we were considering such a policy statement was that the inclusion of a smaller size of development there would restrict anyone trying to do intensification potentially. So if we did a blanket statement, excuse me, that this is a requirement, the implementation of 30% of a development where they're looking to intensify a single detached dwelling to a semi-detached dwelling, it wouldn't be viable, just the nature of the permissions of the lot and building code and zoning permissions. So it was determined that the 2 hectares was deemed to be appropriate and is something that we've seen in other municipalities be implemented. So we were positive that we could move forward with this because of the success that other municipalities have already seen by implementing this policy.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Section 4.2.3, attention is turned to what is said to be an affordable housing target. But practically speaking, what does this plan actually have us do to get 20% of new residential housing to be affordable market housing?
Excuse me, through the warden. So the affordable housing target speaks to a variety of planning tools that can be implemented by the county or lower tier counterparts, as well as through the service manager. So this would include planning policies, development approvals, financial incentives, partnerships, community education, and monitoring. The determination of an affordable housing target, excuse me, is to be done in coordination with the service manager. So it is recommended that there is a enhanced, I guess, relationship with our service provider so that the county is able to also contribute to that 20% affordable housing target.
Okay, I know that this seems to be the fruit of the new PPS. That said, I'm not so sure that the service provider actually is aware of or fully understands the scope of what this involvement could realize in the near future. So just as an observation. We also say in the plan that we are going to use a countywide as the basis for decision making with regards to affordable housing. So how do we apply that when an individual subdivision comes in for review, or alternatively, when a 10-unit apartment building comes in for review? How do we sort of look and say, oh, this is how we get to 20%?
Through the warden, the annual reports, manager reports on applications that go before county council each year is a way that this can be enacted. Fortunately, our planning team does collaborate quite frequently on the different applications we receive. It is something that we are frequently aware of and collaborating with each other. So I guess the municipalities are collaborating on their planning opinions, and recommendations can be made to the county in this regard. I think this section speaks to the actions that the county can take, but also speaks to or recognizes that affordable housing is not just a one level of government or one agency issue. It's a matter that needs to be collaborated on, which is where there's targets for affordable market housing, there's targets for affordable non-market housing, recognizing the role that both municipalities, the county, and separate landowners and developers have at providing affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. Let's look at item 4.2.3.2C, if you don't mind. I applaud actually what I infer from the reading of this statement. To me, what I read is that when a non-market housing agent comes to us and asks us for support, which could include investment, we're going to bring forward the funds potentially to do that. Is that how I'm supposed to read that section?
So, excuse me, you're referring to 4.2.3.2C?
Yeah. I think I've got it numbered right. I hope so.
So the county and local municipalities shall work with all levels of government, service providers, private sector and non-for-profit sector, and Indigenous communities to provide non-market affordable housing, social housing, rent geared to income housing, and supportive housing. The insinuation that monetary funds are provided to those individuals is not how I read or wrote or read this statement. Rather, it's suggesting that because there is a availability of vacant and underutilized lands that was done through the comprehensive review, the county and its local municipalities are aware of where underutilized lands potentially are, and should such a service provider come before either the county or a local municipality interested in providing non-market housing, we would be able to work with them at potentially identifying these areas as areas where non-market housing could be located.
Okay, I think that statement is open for interpretation, but
Okay.
I'll accept your judgment. For item 4.2.3.2E, so let's move down two passages. I'm a bit concerned that all single household individuals are being slotted into some strange new need category, and even with suggestions in the text that they might be vulnerable. So I think this wording deserves a little bit of thought before we put that into the final draft of the plan. For item, let's look at section 3.1.1.1. This is referring to the neighborhood designation. Are we to understand that high density residential forms are not welcome in areas that are so designated?
The high density forms would be directed to other areas outside of neighborhoods. Now, in saying that, the densities would still be encouraged to meet the intensification targets as well as the density targets per unit. This again is permissions, and the zoning bylaws will specifically dictate what is low and high density. But the intention is that high density be located in the strategic growth areas, and the downtown cores and the mixed use areas where it's understood that there's likely to be a better or more convenient access to services.
Okay. Let's look at section 3.5.4.2. In this section, I'm a little confused by what seemed like a scatter of word choices, which may or may not mean the same thing, and that's why I'm confused. So I find words in that section agriculture use, I find words agricultural use, and I find the word farm. And I'm just a little concerned that we use our words really carefully there. So I'm wondering about thinking of clearing that up so that we know exactly what you intend.
The agricultural related use, agriculture use, or farm would mean whatever is either defined in the official plan. If it's not defined in the official plan, it aligns with whatever the definition is in provincial policy. If it's not defined in provincial policy, the normal definition of the word applies. And it's something that we clarified in the front end section. I won't be able to find I think 1.2. But if the concern is related to the use of those various terms, we can look to creating a housekeeping amendment or looking to amend those before it goes to the province to use a consistent term. Is there a particular consistent term that you would prefer?
I'll leave that to your discretion, but I think if you intend the same intention for each use of the word, then let's find one use that is acceptable and will be used consistently.
Just to interrupt, is there anyone else that has questions that will, and then we'll come back to Todd again. Councillor McDermott.
I'm afraid I didn't do as good as Todd and write down the actual numbers I was looking at. I just wrote down the pages. Stormwater management, that is still farms, and second business on a farm is still not covered by any kind of stormwater management, right?
Could you give me the section do you have the page number? If not, that's okay. I can just speak to generally.
It was,
I think
it was on page 251 of your first, when you gave your first report, for the public meeting.
okay. So I'll just let you try and look up. Hold on.
It's 251 of the agenda. You have the full agenda package.
Thank you.
4703.
Yeah, 4783.
There's no restriction that I'm currently seeing in the stormwater management section. Is it specific to drains, perhaps, that you were referencing? I know there's previous concerns about drains being included in natural environment, and that wasn't it's not something that isn't currently included in the official plan. Drains are managed through the Drainage Act, and we have particularly included policies in the official plan to ensure that we're not permitting or restricting anything and letting the Drainage Act manage those drains.
No, it was, I know, for storm management in a city and stuff like that, that's a specific requirement and things like that. So I was just wondering that there's nothing in there that at this point in time requires the farmer building a barn or building, say, a shed for second business, that they would be required to do any kind of like a storm management plan like you would in an urban area.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
It would just be a requirement for development to ensure that in an urban area, whether it can be adequately serviced, and there might be the consideration for it to be adequately serviced if it's on private services. The Ministry of Environment might be involved, but that's not something that's specifically detailed in the official plan.
Yep, no, I was just concerned about farms. And then it's 511, it's lot creation on ag land and things like that. So the size of the lot that can be left, that's done by the local municipality. They decide what it is, right?
Correct. The specific lot area requirements are to be set out in the local zoning bylaws.
Yep, okay. And then it would be 6.5653. It's called supporting studies, and it's XXIV 24. It's a health impact assessment. I'm just curious is how you would ever go about in an urban area. How would you make that assessment?
In a urban area, the health impact assessment, it would be related to lands that are adjacent to, if what was being proposed was a sensitive use, and it was potentially being proposed next to a industrial type building, a health impact assessment might be required. I am not a health impact assessment expert, so I don't know exactly the steps that would be taken to undertake that. But as a planning team, if it was determined that, you know, maybe this is of concern, we want to assure that the health and safety of individuals is not something that's proposed here, then maybe that could be considered.
Okay, no, thank you.
Okay, anyone else in this side questions? How many more have you got, Todd?
We're getting there. We're getting there. So
That mean 5 or 10, or what does that mean?
I would say I have another 7 or 8. Okay, let's just check on a terminology. Item 4.2.5.1B subsection 4 uses the term services.
If I could ask through you, Warden, if the member could slowly recite the numbers so that we can follow along?
Sure, yeah, sorry.
My
I can-
fingers are a little bit behind.
I can
so
do that, yeah.
Thank you.
4.2.5.1. Subsection B, then subsection IV uses the term services and suggests that ARUs generally share services with the primary dwelling on the lot. Do we intend internet and phone services here, or is this to be consistent with the definition of services in the glossary, in which case shouldn't this word be italicized for that intent?
This definition is directly pulled from provincial policy. And I will say that it is not defined in provincial policy. If there's concern about the requirement to share services that aren't defined in the official plan, then the staff can look to either making that a more clear on what services are being spoken of. I wouldn't recommend that we remove require, as require is a requirement of the PPS.
Okay, thanks. I just, you wonder, right? Like, what is the intent there? Let's look at 4.2.5.3, which identifies policies related to so-called garden suites. Is a garden suite in addition to allowed ARUs?
A garden suite would be an additional dwelling unit or additional residential unit, excuse me. Garden suites recognize that there are existing garden suites within the county that are particular to garden suite terminology that's used, and the official plan tried to recognize the existing uses within the county today.
So is it a +1 or not a +1?
It would be included in the requirements of having 3 units on a lot. It would be considered an additional dwelling unit.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Let me ask about section 4.4.1 subsection G. This one suggests that when parkland is dedicated to a municipality, that the county and local municipality must be satisfied with the condition of said parkland. Is it the intention of the county to sign off on each such dedication, which is typically to a local municipality?
The county, well, I guess that's a decision of county, but the intention here is that the member municipalities and the county, through their subdivision agreements, if the county has any specific conditions that need to be cleared, then could consider that specific line item of this policy in requiring that there's parkland dedication that meets these following circumstances.
Okay. Let's look at item 4.7.2 subsection E. This one references that designated commercial areas will be serviced by roads with appropriate traffic capacity and active transportation infrastructure. And it begs an obvious question. What are the standards or criteria for appropriate?
Appropriate would be determined through either a traffic impact study or be determined through the Ministry of Transportation requirements on the capacity of road based on the development proposed, as well as speed limits to accommodate the amount of capacity that that certain road is anticipated to receive.
Okay. There to me seems like there's an encumbrance on the local municipality or on the county to do something about that if there's a problem with the study, right? But perhaps that gets transferred to developers if developers are involved in that development.
I think it's a policy that encourages the municipality to ask the question of developers. Should roads be adopted by a municipality through development? It's encouraging or ensuring that the roads are designated appropriately, as it would be the county or the local municipality who is taking over those roads.
Okay, 2 more. For the warden's benefit, 2 more. I'm just about there. I believe that section 6.5.2 in the document that we received leaves traces of editing in the aftermath of the very recent changes that were embedded as a result of the 2024 PPS. There are still references to mandatory pre-consultations in this section. And I think that therefore that section needs to be sort of cleaned up again, looked at carefully to make sure that we deal appropriately with that use of the word mandatory in there. And even in the context of sort of indicating that pre-consultations may suggest this, but if they're not mandatory and they didn't happen, then what? So I encourage you to have a look at that one if you don't mind. And then finally in section 6.5.3, which I think my colleague asked a question about earlier, we provide for a peer review of supplied studies, and we leave the mandates for peer review to council and or planning staff. There could be a delegated authority there, it would appear. Let's say an applicant does not want to do a peer review that has been requested by a planning staff member. What is the appeal mechanism, if any?
The appeal mechanism would, I'll take a step back. The peer review ensures that the application is deemed complete as required by the Planning Act. The planning staff don't have the expertise in all areas where we're required to ask concerns. So when I'll use a functional servicing reports as an example. Maybe that's not a good example because we have engineering on staff, but a heritage impact assessment is received. The planning staff would then potentially need the study to be assessed. If it's a matter that will impact the ability for the application to be approved, then it is in the delegates applicants' best interest to provide that or provide funding for that to happen. The appeal process, there would not be one. Now, in saying that, the application wouldn't be able to be deemed complete without these studies to go ahead. I guess that is something we can look to if there is an appeal process, but I believe that if we deem the application incomplete because we felt there was a need to undertake a peer review, then the applicant could appeal on the basis of we incorrectly identified their application as incomplete.
Okay, anyone else with questions? I think a lot of the concerns that Todd has can be done in our bylaw in 2025 when we update it and address the concerns then. Is that correct?
We can also look to make amendments now before we send them to the ministry, as they are just, not just, as the majority of them are grammatical errors or spelling changes. Those can be done. They don't change the content of the plan.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from any members of council? If not, then we do have a motion. Councilor McDermott, sorry.
Can we still make amendments to the official plan now before we pass it?
I'll let Moira answer that.
If there's any amendments that are looking to be considered, then council would consider them now and amend the motion to consider adopting the official plan with the amendments considered. The clerk will have better, more formal wording than I just put forward.
Okay, is there any concerns that you want to bring forward?
Yeah, no, I would just ask for an amendment for the lands in Searingville, Sebastopol. The land is never going to be farmed. It's simply infilling, and I appreciate what you said. It's adding to the stock of houses that we have, and at our last meeting, it sounds like that it's almost by right that you can put in 6 houses now in villages and hamlets and stuff like that. So I would ask that it simply be included in our official plan.
Councillor Orr?
Yeah, this one is just clerical, page 435, I think candidate lands were removed from Sebringville and from Mitchell, so you just have them listed, but they are removed in the plan.
Thank you.
Warden, if I might, I assume that staff, should we approve this official plan, will consider minor grammatical changes, typos, that kind of thing as insignificant and that doesn't require another look by this council.
I believe so, correct?
That's a fair assumption.
Yeah.
That is the correct assumption. That's what we would consider. That's permitted in our existing official plan, is also permitted by provincial policy that changes can be made without going before council.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so
I think, if I might, to Hugh's suggestion, we received a few requests from delegates this morning. So should we consider whether we want to act on them at this point in time or defer them? You've asked for one to be acted upon. What about the other ones? Are we going to look at them or are we going to pass at this point?
I guess it's whatever council wishes to do. Does anyone else have any comments what they wish to do moving forward? Councilor McKenzie?
Well, I think as each, I'm going to call them delegations, came forth, I think Maura did an excellent job of advising us why or why not, that they should be considered. And my take on her explanation was that there was good thought put into it and there was good reasoning as to why it should or should not be included. With regards to Councillor McDermott's comments, when you're in a village such as Sebastopol, when services are that close, I find it a hard sell that you shouldn't have services. Now, I can appreciate that Oxford County doesn't want to extend them out, but I would think that there should be some negotiation to put those on services.
Nothing to add, but if we decide, sorry, if council would like to review the delegations again, one more time, I do have the planning notes on them if that is of interest to anyone.
Yes, I think everyone presented well today, but I think that also our planning staff presented the reasons why they weren't included or whatever. And I think that the discussions have been quite long, and as I think my colleague indicated, they started in 2018. And I think we should continue on, and each presentation should be dealt with later on a one-off.
Councilor Jankowski?
Through you, Warden Eggets, I would concur with Councillor Wilhelm that we should address the individual delegation requests as separate entities, separate submissions. They're very detailed and specific cases, so as our planning staff indicated, the reasoning why they should be addressed as official plan amendments individually rather than incorporated into the draft official plan. I'm confident with that approach. Thank you.
Okay, well, I have a motion. I'll read it and we'll see where it goes. So that council receives the draft County of Perth official plan 2024 for adoption report, and that council adopts the proposed draft 2024 official plan, and that council directs staff to forward the proposed draft official plan and all required supporting documents to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MMAH, for approval, and that council directs staff to work with MMAH to approve draft official plan, including incorporating any modifications deemed necessary by the ministry. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Tunkowski, second by Councillor Wilhelm. Are there any more comments or questions? Councillor Katzenberg?
Can I just check in to make sure that that last or that late section in the document, which pertains to the issues related to mandatory pre-consultations will be addressed properly if we adopt this plan so that we're not having sort of asynchrony between the various terms and information? That you'll submit an improved version of that?
Through the warden, that change will be made before the final document is sent to the ministry for approval.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, at this time, I just want to say thank you to staff and congratulations on getting the official plan to this point. I know some of you came in the middle of the session. You took the bull by the horns. You looked at it. You've got it where we are today. I can't thank all of you enough. All the staff that are behind the scenes that have helped everyone. Council is very appreciative, as we've said many times here today. We've been at this for 6 years. And it's great to finally see to it come to an end. It's almost worse than we did farm severances. I don't know if it took that long too, or but it took forever. So anyway, I'm sorry we can't accommodate everybody. We've tried our best. I think we have a great document. And once again, thank you to staff for all that you have done. Okay, so we are going to move on. We are almost at curfew here at 1 o'clock. We're going to get a couple things squeezed in and then we're going to have to extend our curfew. So we're now at corporate services and a Perth Municipal Association, our annual Perth East Municipal Day, and Tyler's going to give that report.
Perfect. So through the warden, thank you. In front of council is the 76th annual meeting of the Perth County Municipal Association. This report is an information report to advise council and staff that we are hosting or Perth East is hosting the November 20th, 2024 meeting. So this meeting is based on the thematic conversation of healthy body, healthy mind. The event happens at 8:30. All lower tier clerks have been informed and you should have invitations. I'd like to get everybody out to that. Some really good speakers will be in attendance to, again, discuss healthy body, healthy mind. So happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, any questions of the report? If not, we have a motion that council receives the Perth Municipal Association 76th Annual Perth Municipal Event Update Report for information. Moved by Councillor Orr, second by Councillor Duncan. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and then the next one, do we have time? Let's extend curfew before so I don't have to, you can come this way, Corey, and so I need a motion to extend curfew to 2 o'clock. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor McKenzie. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're doing general insurance renewal. Corey?
Thanks, Warden Eggetts and council. I do have a brief, just a brief slide deck, a couple slides. That I can run here, right? Okay. All right. The general insurance policy is the insurance program to mitigate risk by municipalities to ensure potential issues and problems that may arise is covered by insurance. It covers every unknown, tries to, so all this Perth County citizens can sleep easy at night, knowing financially the municipality is covered. The insurer is providing the overall $50 million limit of liability as it relates to municipal general liability, auto fleet, and non-owned auto, which staff feels is sufficient for municipal government. Risk liability does not care how big or small the municipality is when it comes to accidents, hazards, or disasters. Deductibles remain to be the same as last year and have been provided to all of council members. Along with the limits and deductibles are numerous sublimits and coverages extensions that are applicable to each coverage type. There is a large increase in property value for 2025 due to the renovation to the courthouse campus and connecting link, causing the larger increase in 2025 premiums related to property.
The premiums paid by the county for insurance is impacted by many factors, including market conditions, legislative changes, claim trends, inflation, county and similar sector claim history, county growth, and the nature of the operations and services provided by the organization. The county went to RFP in 2023 and contracted with Aon for the current comprehensive insurance program. The 2.48% increase is reasonable when considering all the factors impacting Perth County today. As previously mentioned, 2025 Perth County will be adding approximately in excess of $6 million in property value to the county's property portfolio with the courthouse campus and connecting link and renovation in addition. The 2025 total insurance renewal of $643,806 is an increase of $15,000 or just over $15,000, excluding retail sales tax, which is a 2.48% increase from the 2024 premiums. If there's any questions on the reports, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that council receives the general insurance renewal report for information and that council approve general insurance renewal for the period January 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2025 with Aon Reed Stenhouse Inc. at a cost of $643,806 plus applicable taxes, and that council authorize the treasurer to execute all associated documents related to the general insurance renewal. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, do we have any council reports? No, we have bylaws. And that had to do with our official plan amendment this morning. So that bylaw 4002-2024 be read a first, second, and third time and finally pass the 17th day of October, 2024. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Duncan. All in favor? Carried. Okay, do we have any notice of motions? Any other business? Any announcements? We do need for a closed session, so we're going to break for that. We're still recording.
Yeah, we're still, so we're gonna.
Oh, right, I have to go in the motion. Sorry. Let the Perth County Council move into closed session at approximately 12:59 a.m. in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act to consider a matter pertaining to negotiation/legal advice CAO. I think that's 12:59 p.m. Sleeping. All moved by Deputy Warden Callum, second by Councillor Duncan. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have a motion that bylaw 4003-2024 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of the county of Perth at its regular meeting held October 17, 2024 is read a first, second, and third time and finally passed October 17, 2024. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Orr. All in favor? Carried. And the last motion of the day is council meeting be adjourned at 1:22 p.m. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg, second by Councillor McKenzie. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.